Board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to ending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the planning board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Confirming everyone is anticipated on the agenda or remotely present can be heard by stating the following. Members, and I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bill Pierce.
Here.
Amy Paretsky.
Here.
Millie Milton.
Here.
Anthony Zaitin.
Here.
Hey, staff, and I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lori Connors.
Here.
Bob Federico.
Here.
Great. Ground rules for the meeting. There are no presenters or applicants tonight or public comments this evening. So I think that concludes the announcements for tonight, for executive session. So with that, when do we get started with the agenda? First on the agenda tonight is the discussion of 2024 town meeting zoning related articles, including MBTA multifamily bylaw. So Lori, you sent us some new documents that includes the downtown zoning map, proposed highway business district map, and then the list of current articles for consideration. Do you want me to share my screen or let's see?
Sure, if you'd like to. If we could start with the multifamily development overlay district bylaw. So we could just go over the modifications.
All right.
So I did provide you with both a track changes copy and a clean copy, just to make it easier to see what the changes are. So I did receive a number of suggested changes from Amy.
Okay, so is options 3 draft MBTA the right one?
Yeah, is.
No, that's not clean, that's tracked.
Why don't you open the track changes one? That's probably going to be easier.
So it has questions for Lori in it and some comments and tracked differences. Is that the one you want me to share?
Yeah, it should say 12/19/23 draft.
No, sorry, this is option 3 MBTA. It looks like 11/20, so hold on, I'm behind on that one. Let's see. Sorry, my emails stack up. Oh, I see it. 12/19. No, that's 12/19 for all of our zoning articles. It's not in there.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. So whoever opens it first wins.
Oh, okay, it's a challenge.
Don't count on me.
Okay, let's see. Sent out a lot of emails in the last week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have one with a map. Oh no, that's just the map now. Oh no, okay, I have a whole bunch of option 3s.
Okay, so there should be one that's called track changes.
Okay, I have compiled clean 12/14, and I have compiled to track changes 12/14. Does that sound right?
That.
Oh,
Well,
12/19 draft is up at the
yeah,
top.
12/19 is what it should say.
All right, let's
But the
see.
file name is 12/14.
Oh. Laura, you may have to share. My Zoom settings aren't letting me share.
Okay. Do you know what date I sent that email? Unfortunately, I'm having trouble accessing my drive, so I can only access my email, which is a little bit.
The email is from December 14th at 2:26.
Okay, I got it.
All right.
Let's see.
I'd have to
Okay,
restart
so now I'm
Zoom.
gonna share.
Great.
All right, can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so under purposes, Amy suggested a couple of changes. So under number 2, to diversify the Northborough housing stock and create pedestrian-friendly development. Then she deleted bullet 5, and then she added some additional language to bullet 6. And I'm fine with all of those changes. Are you folks okay with that?
Amy, why'd you delete 5? Was it reflected somewhere else?
Yeah, because we weren't doing. I used, I can't remember now, but we had option 1 and option 2. And one of them included Avalon and the baseball, and one included downtown. And I forgot why. I combined some of them.
Well, she added additional language to bullet 2 about the pedestrian
Oh, okay, so
friendly
it's covered somewhere
environment. So
else.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it just added to 2 versus using 5 also.
Okay.
So then she had asked about adding a downtown multifamily mixed use subdistrict. Now the issue with the mixed use district is you can only create a mandatory mixed use district if you have already fulfilled your multifamily requirement with another district of 50 acres of developable land. So that would be a bonus district. Totally fine with doing that. You know, that might be appropriate for like Pierce and maybe Hudson, and you know, there are some streets that would make sense in the downtown area, and it would fit in with the downtown revitalization strategy that you folks still haven't seen. So I'm okay with doing that, but I just wanted to make it clear to all of you that this would be bonus acreage. So you still have to create a district with at least 50 acres of developable land, and then this would be above and beyond that. So I
So
wasn't
we
sure.
can't, what you're saying is we can't force mixed use.
Correct. Correct.
Well,
So-
in the state bylaw, it says 25% can be mixed use.
But that's only if you go above and beyond the 50 acres. That's my understanding. You can encourage mixed use, which is what I was trying to do with the downtown overlay district by giving a height bonus for mixed use as opposed to purely multifamily. But you just can't mandate it.
The only reason why I added it, like, I don't even think we have a mixed use section on the map, but I added it because say we wanted Blake Street to be redeveloped and we wanted it to be mixed use and they wanted to do more than like 2 housing units. I just thought having it in the bylaw made it easier going forward to add something like Blake Street or Pierce Street. Something like if we needed it, but or we could just wait and do it in the future. But I thought while we were writing the bylaw, you could have a subsection that was just multifamily housing only, and a section that was included multifamily mixed use in case there was a developer that came forth for Blake Street or the downtown that said, you know, I want to do some mixed use. Then we would have it ready to go, but we really don't even have it on the maps that we have right now. So, I mean, we don't have to do it. I was just trying to make it easier for the future if we needed it. But if it's not going to be a section on one of our maps, we don't have to do it.
So right now, if you look at the downtown business district, you'll see that mixed use is already allowed. So they have, so I'm going to look at my use table. So mixed use is
Up to 8.
in the downtown neighborhood district. They allow by right a limited mixed use building artist live work unit, shop for custom work, and that's pretty much it. And then when you get into the commercial districts, there is mixed use. So in downtown business, limited mixed use building is by right. Artist live work unit is by right. Vertical mixed use development is by right. And horizontal mixed use development is by special permit. So from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So those districts do currently allow some mixed use. Now the benefit of doing a mixed use district here is that you can mandate mixed use, whereas right now they can choose to do mixed use or choose to do something else.
Okay, but a mandate is still not possible unless it's above and beyond.
Correct.
And
So
even then, it's only
can't
25%.
create a mixed use district that mandates mixed use unless you've already fulfilled the minimum requirement of 50 acres in a multifamily overlay district. And that's developable acres, not just flat acreage.
I don't mind if it's in there. I just knew at one point we were looking at some of the downtown districts being part of the MBTA. And right now downtown, we allow up to 4. Was that downtown neighborhood? We don't.
Oh,
And then, yeah, we allow 4 in the downtown neighborhood. This would allow more, but we don't have to. I'm okay with that. I was just adding it to be easier for downtown revitalization if you wanted to have part of those streets as part of the MBTA. But if we're not going to use those, Blake Street as part of the MBTA, then we don't need it.
Any thoughts from board members?
I just received an email from Tim. Is
Yes.
he sitting in the waiting room?
I don't see, do you see him on? Unless he's in, is he logged in under a spouse's name perhaps? Stefan does, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna email him and say we can't see him.
Maybe if he can raise his hand, then we can see him.
I guess when we were last looking at this, I didn't know if some of Blake Street was going to be part of MBTA.
Okay, any board member thoughts on this one?
As far as the multi-use, I mean, I think, Lori pretty much answered that. So I do agree with Lori that, adding the extra height, if they do a multi-use, is a good way to incentivize them to do a multi-use. But if we can't force it, we can't force it.
So you're saying leave it in there or take it out?
Well, we still have to get our 50, right? Let's worry about the 50 first. And then we
Yeah.
can, look again and see, okay, what's left? We can always do that next year, but we need to get that 50 in now.
By next December.
Yeah, not
It's
now.
not really right now.
Well, but it needs to be in for the next, we need to plan on having it in for the next meeting, because if it doesn't go, if it doesn't get voted on by the town, then, we're going to be scrambling.
All right, well, for the purpose of this one, my concern would just be that the more we add, the more difficult it is to pass. So then if people get wrapped around the axle for that, you're not sharing it anymore, Lori?
Yeah, I was having trouble seeing what I was sharing, so I thought that maybe it got screwed up, but now I can see it.
Okay, All right, so maybe, I don't know, does anyone want, are there any, Bill, so you're saying you're in favor of leaving it in or taking it out? You want to focus on the 50 first?
I think we focus on the 50 first, because I mean, I still have a problem with the 50 using, you know, the stuff on Hudson Street. So
Okay. Okay, so Amy, you're okay with taking this out unless
Oh, yeah,
Millie,
yep,
you
I'm okay.
want to keep that?
Okay. So
Can I-
moving
Bill,
on.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Oh, of
Oh,
course,
yeah, I'm sorry.
I just want clarification from Bill about Hudson Street. What do you mean?
well, I have a real concern. So we're adding that 13 acres on Hudson Street, right, into this. And I have a real concern with adding that, because what we're doing is we're saying as a board, if we vote to add that in there, that 13 acres at 15 units per acre, that's 195 units, are okay to be built and have the traffic go off onto Hudson Street. I don't think Hudson Street can handle that kind of traffic, especially right there.
Okay, so
Right.
you,
So I have a real problem with saying that that 13 acre block really belongs there, right? As a by right. I love
Dale.
what they, yep.
As part of any development, they would be required to provide a traffic impact study. So they could be required as part of a development to make off-site improvements. So if the roadway is inadequate, if it needs a traffic signal or maybe something else, sidewalk improvements or whatever, then the development could be required to make those improvements. But the traffic study would be done at the time of application.
Yeah, but I mean, you still got the aqueduct there, right? You've got, you know, so that narrows traffic. People are going to be making a left-hand turn out of there to go to 290, right? So all those left-hand turns for, let's say, 100 vehicles during rush hour, I just don't see it where we have a better option to me of doing it up closer to Route 20 and Route 9, where you've got 2 lanes of traffic there.
Well, you're going to remember that even in a development of that size, and I've seen a lot of traffic impact studies over my time for very large projects of, 100+ units. And that traffic is going to be staggered. So you're not going to see, 100 cars leaving at precisely 8 a.m. every morning. They're going to be staggered over time. Some people start to work at very early in the morning. Some people work the middle shift. Some people work the night shift. Some people work from home. So you're not going to see the pulse of traffic that you might be anticipating. So I don't think it's going to be as severe as you think that it's going to be.
Like I said, I just don't think that street can, what it reminds me of, it reminds me of Rice Road in Millbury, right? You've got
Rice Road, no.
I lived on Rice Road.
And Hudson Street, and they are completely different animals. Rice Road is a neighborhood street, and Hudson Street is a major street.
But they're both just as narrow, and they both would have issues handling a lot of traffic being put on. That's just my feeling, right? We have better options, I guess, is my point, right? So that's my concern. It's 195 units being built at Avalon style, right? It may not look like Avalon. I know that, we can say design and everything else, but it's, 15 units per acre for 13 acres to 195 units. That's a lot of units coming out onto a street that I just don't think it can handle it with whatever. We can't improve the aqueduct.
Well, I think it all depends on whether you want a thriving downtown or whether you want to keep the downtown the way it is.
we can still do it. We had that other presentation made, right? That other presentation, we could still approve that without adding this to the MBTA communities. That could still be
What do you,
approved. And then we don't have to worry about 195 acres. We have to worry about what was it, 50 or
Those
85
help the
units?
Downtown.
those,
sorry, what
those
did you say?
units, are you talking about the Hudson Street property?
Mhm.
That was the focus of the presentation at the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying you're okay with that? You're just
Right.
not okay with
I think that
all of
many,
the
right,
parcels?
exactly.
that are
You know, they were using a
Okay.
lot of that land and keeping a lot of that hill for recreation purposes, which is great. But if we're going to say that that entire 13 acres is available for development, and somebody were to come in and was willing to level out that area and do what we're going to vote, they're allowed to do, I have a real problem with that. Because I think 195 units is way too much for Hudson Street.
So what you're saying is you want to split the parcel in half?
No, I'm saying that, you know, if that what was presented last meeting were to come in front of us, I would be fine with that. But what we're voting on for the MBTA community is saying that we're saying we are okay with 195 units going onto that spot. And I just don't see it.
Well, they can't do their proposal unless they're included in the MBTA
Why?
project.
We'd be able to
Because it's
approve
not
it.
zoned for that density, so they
Then-
can't do 98 units under the current zoning scheme.
But we can fix that without having to do the entire 13 acres.
I think Bill
I'm
and Lori,
confused.
what we've been told is if they do an agreement, even though but we would need the agreement before going to town meeting. If they did an agreement, we could get an agreement that they would only build the 97, but we can include all 14, but they would have to have an agreement. And I think we should find out if that
But
agreement would hold up by town council.
Well, we can't because then it's not developable land, right? Which is the requirement of the MBTA communities, is that it is developable and it's by right. So if somebody were to come in after he was done in 20 years and say, I want to just build the rest of it out, they could by right.
So I did reach out to see if the property owner, Ken Bishop, would be willing to sign a development agreement. And the response I got was Ken Bishop is very interested in developing his land under the MBTA bylaw, and he is open to discussing a development agreement. Are there any particulars they are interested in including at this time? He will certainly want some flexibility in the number of units and building heights due to the spiraling costs of construction and the uncertainties of the actual start date. Who knows what construction costs will be like in 2025 to 2026, or the market for apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how can you leave something so open-ended? You can't leave it open-ended like that. So, well, we'll see how things are in 2 years if I get approval. I mean, there's got to be there would have to be lockdown agreement and covenants in place to move forward from start to go, you know, from saying approved to starting construction.
Now, under the MBTA bylaw, once a district is adopted, it could be developed at any time. It could be developed next year. It could be developed in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You know, there's no mandate that says that it has to be developed at any time. And it's my understanding that you folks wouldn't necessarily want it to be developed right away.
No, I'm not concerned about when it starts the development. I'm saying that from the start of whenever, whatever, if ever something gets approved, that's where the stop starts. Meaning if it's 97 units and they're so many 1 family and 2 families and 3 families, that would have to be an agreement before anything would take place, is how I see it. I mean, is that something that can be done?
So what the development agreement would say, so like, for example, the New England Ball Fields property, they are interested in specifying precisely the number of units, 315 units, and specifying the number of 1 bedrooms versus 2 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms. But that's an anomaly. It's unlikely that you are going to be able to get an agreement on any of the land in Hudson Street or possibly anywhere else for precisely the development scheme, because they don't know what they want to do. And it depends on what the development costs are. So, you know, that Trammell Crow is a developer. So they specialize, that's what they do. That's their expertise, is developing multifamily communities. So they can give you that level of detail. Ken Bishop is not a developer. This isn't his expertise. And he can't tell you. What he's telling you is that he's willing to discuss a development agreement, but at this time, he doesn't feel comfortable committing to a number of units. And it's unlikely that he's going to feel comfortable committing to a number of bedrooms. So if you're not going to zone any area for the MBTA, unless there's a development agreement, then we're in real trouble. Chances are we are not going to meet the deadline, because you need to have property owners that are willing to commit. And you got to understand that the vast majority of the property owners are not developers. So they're not going to be able to commit. They're not going to feel comfortable committing. They may be interested in selling the land, you know, like the owner of the car dealership on Route 20. He's not going to know anything about this stuff. So he's not going to be able to give you a commitment.
Right, but our job is just to zone it, not to worry
Correct.
about who's going to build it. Right?
Correct,
That's
but-
for the owners and everyone else to fight over.
But what
So-
I'm saying is that if you folks are saying that you are not going to zone any land for MBTA unless you have a development agreement, then we're not going to meet our deadline, because that is going to be really difficult to get.
I have another parcel I can show at the end of this presentation that might meet the deadline. I
And-
did another map up.
Well, maybe we should just move on with this
Yep, with
bylaw
this.
anyway, and then we can talk more about locations.
Okay,
I agree
so-
though with Bill and Anthony now, though, if we're not gonna get an agreement on Hudson Street, I wouldn't be in favor either.
But you realize, I mean, if you choose the gravel pit, you're not going to have an agreement there either.
Right, but I think the gravel pit coming out onto Route 20 is a better option for traffic in town than, you know, like I said, 100 units coming out onto Hudson Street.
Although if you folks are interested in downtown revitalization, then unless the town is willing to pony up all the money for the infrastructure improvements, which is multiple millions of dollars, then it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to get grant money.
If what, Laurie?
You know,
If we don't-
they're going to want to see that there's development happening.
Right,
And
they don't have to be in the downtown area. I mean,
no,
I'm-
you can't get money for infrastructure improvements unless the development is occurring in the downtown area. So if the development is occurring on Southwest Cutoff, then that is where you can get grant money for off-street improvements.
Right.
The money follows where the units will be.
Right. But then we can do, you know, if we do the units out at Route 20, Route 9, right, as the MBTA, then we can really look at the mixed use for the downtown. right? Like we were just talking about, and then we don't have to do 15 units per acre, right? It doesn't have to be that large.
If you're doing an MBTA bylaw, then yes, I mean, then you would have to do more units per acre at Southwest Cutoff in order to get fewer units per acre in the mixed use development. So the mixed use development, the MBTA is all about creating housing. So you can't just mandate that you're going to create commercial space with no housing. It doesn't work that way. So every location that is an MBTA district, whether it's a straight multifamily district or it's a mixed use district, has to include multifamily housing. So if you're going to do 10 units per acre downtown, then that means you're doing 20 units per acre somewhere else.
Right.
Because you have to average.
Yep.
And remember, it has to average across the acreage too.
Yep.
So if you're doing, 5 acres downtown at 10 units per acre, then you only have to do 5 acres somewhere else at 20 units per acre. Or you could just average it out over a larger area. So you could do 10 acres at 12 and a half units. Obviously, you can't do a half a unit, but let's say 13 units per acre.
Right, but we could use, I guess what I'm saying is, if the majority of the 50 acres is out on Route 20 at the ball field and the gravel pit, right? From what I remember, we were almost at 50 acres just with those two. And so then we can really look at, okay, what do we want to zone downtown? It doesn't have to be part of MBTA. It can be completely separate. It can be what we want it to be.
We have 38 acres with Avalon, if it counts. In Westboro, one of their districts, they're using 3 districts. One of their districts uses their 40B. So if that counts, ours will count. Westboro picked 3 apartment buildings that are already built as their districts.
Did they have
Are
an
they
overland?
already 15 plus units per acre?
Probably.
Well, but again, that doesn't matter. All you have to do is zone for it. If the
Right.
buildings are already built, it doesn't matter if,
Right. So
you're just
the
saying that,
8
yeah,
acres-
you can destroy all those buildings and rebuild if you want, or, you can leave it the way it is.
Another possibility, my concern is that our Avalon development is only 9 units per acre, so it doesn't meet the 15 units per acre. However, what that may mean is that if Avalon is interested in expanding, then they will get the green light to do so. So they could build another building up there or another certain number of units, if possible, to meet the 15 units per acre.
Yeah,
What
but
percentage-
again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Avalon is or isn't. What we're saying as a board is that area is allowed to build 15
Right.
15
Mhm.
units per acre, right? It doesn't matter that Avalon's 9 or not.
Yes, but what I'm telling you folks is if that you include Avalon, then you have to be prepared for the possibility that Avalon will come back to expand their development. So right now there's 382 units. So they could expand their development and get more units.
Yep.
Now, I
but-
don't know, they do have some environmental constraints up there. So I'm not sure if they'd be able to make that happen, but
How many
sometimes where there's a
acres?
will, there's a way. So I just want you folks to be prepared for that possibility.
But I mean, this whole MBTA thing, right? We have to come up with 750 units, no matter where, right? We have to zone for 750 units, 50 acres at 15 units per acre, 750 units. Doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter who's there now, who's not there now. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is where do we want these to go in town?
So what,
Correct.
how many acres is Avalon?
So Avalon is 42 acres, but Judy Barrett did the analysis
Yeah.
to determine how many acres are actually developable. And that analysis showed 38 acres.
So we can use those 38 and we need about another 15.
Which the ball field and the gravel pit are more than enough.
I have some downtown that might work. I'd like to show later. I don't
Okay,
think,
why don't we
I'm
get
not,
through, why don't we get through this bylaw part and then look at location part and then figure out, so it sounds like, are we leaving in multifamily mixed use or taking it out for this one?
I was only putting it in case we ever wanted to use it.
We can add it later, right?
Yep, you'd have to go to another town meeting. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so then next under D. So Amy had made some modifications, and then I made some modifications to her modifications. So one of the things that I was concerned about is the planning board. She wanted to change the language, so it said the planning board shall adopt regulations to facilitate site layout, building design, and outdoor amenity spaces. Now, my comment is that those regulations exist within this bylaw itself. So the regulations, the further regulations regarding site layout, building design, and outdoor amenity spaces is located in another section of the zoning bylaw. So this language probably came from another town. Other towns, so in our community, our planning board rules and regulations only have to do with submission requirements, not the actual design. So all of the design requirements, with the exception of that which is in the design guidelines, all of the design requirements are situated within the zoning bylaw. So it wouldn't be appropriate for the planning board to adopt planning board rules and regulations regarding these things, because that would be contrary to the way our regulations are set up. So I would suggest that we return to the original language that says the planning board shall adopt design guidelines for the MDOD that are not inconsistent with this section or other applicable sections of the Northborough zoning bylaws. So our design guidelines are not called design review guidelines, they're called design guidelines. So I just want to be consistent with that.
Yep, and I talked to Lori about this all last week, so and I agreed with what she said.
Okay.
Okay, so then under mixed use development, this is another thing that I was concerned about, because we're only going to cite the underlining zoning districts that actually have the overlay district in it. So right now, the proposal is downtown business, downtown neighborhood, and the MSR district, as well as the highway business district. But the highway business district, so if you're, whether we're doing Avalon or whether we're doing the ball fields, you folks decided that you were not interested in a commercial option. So there would only be mixed use, most likely within the downtown area. So that would be the downtown business and the downtown neighborhood district only. And once again, I'm concerned about mandating mixed use on the buildings that are behind those that are located along the frontage. But I'm fine with saying that if it's a non-residential use on the street floor that requires a special permit in the underlying district, then it still requires a special permit. Is that confusing enough for everybody?
Yes, very.
And I had only included Business East and Business West because I knew Tradabi was for sale. And you can get 5 acres over there. So say someone came forth and wanted to change Tradabi from a previous hazardous waste site that's clean to some sort of mixed use that included 15 apartments because it gave them the money they needed to clean it up and build a nice new building, then that's why I included Business East and Business West. But if we're not going to look at mixed use in this bylaw, or we just want to focus on downtown, then we don't have to. When we first started looking at these and we're looking at different zones, I was trying to look at parcels that we've been trying to sell forever and see how could we entice a builder to do something better in that location and also give them like a little bit of carrot that makes it worthwhile to them, because a lot of developers are kind of excited to do high density housing because that's where the money's at, but it would also help them to clean up a site that we've been hoping to clean up for years. So that's why I included Business West, because if someone came forth and wanted to be, in the MBTA and fix up a property in Business West, then I wanted to be open to it. But just because it's included doesn't mean we have to do it. Like it was just including everything. So we kept our options open.
But that's going to be super confusing for the zoning enforcement officer as well as me. It's going to inspire a lot of questions. If people see that there's no land within the Business East District that's in the MDOD, so then why would this say this? So I wouldn't, it's gonna be too confusing. So the language in the clean document says where the subject property is located within the downtown multifamily development subdistrict. Developments within the MDOD may include the following non-residential uses on the street floor. Non-residential uses that require a special permit in the underlying district shall require a special permit in the MDOD. So that was the final language that resulted from all of these comments and the strikeout and the track changes.
That seems to still cover it.
Right. But it's just funny because like a couple minutes ago, we said we weren't doing mixed use. So now we're going to include the mixed use
Well-
language.
Well,
We're not gonna have a
remember
district.
that in this district, it would be encouraged, not required. So that's the
Okay.
difference. So it's encouraged by the increase in the height instead of being required, as your language stated. So encouraging it is okay. The state is okay with that. Okay.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if this is something that can be answered, but I don't know that if you have a hazardous material or hazardous soil, even if it's been cleaned up, I think there are still some restrictions on whether you can do residential use over that for a period of time.
Right. Probably. I was just using it as an example, but we don't even know if that site is clean.
Right, but I don't
Yeah.
think I would make a zoning, recommendation based on that possibility.
Right. There are others over there.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so you are okay with the cleaned up language of this? It's still what Laurie just proposed? Amy?
Yeah. Well, I don't know actually what she said. I didn't hear
You
all
want
of
me
it.
to repeat it?
Sure. I'm a more visual person. So is it what is typed out but not crossed out?
It's in the clean version.
cleaned
It's
out,
in the
the
clean
cleaned up
version.
version. So it says where the subject property is located within the downtown multifamily subdistrict. I'm gonna try and move up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
I probably have a clean version here too somewhere.
Yeah,
So
it's in
where
the
the
same
subject
email.
property, where the subject property is located within the downtown multifamily development subdistrict, developments within the MDOD may include the following non-residential uses on the street floor. Non-residential uses that require a special permit in the underlying district shall require a special permit in the MDOD. So it's a combination of of my original paragraph and your
Mhm.
words
Okay,
above.
that's fine.
So then, on number 3, Amy wanted to add medical and dental. I'm fine with that. Makes sense. Then under 10, she wanted, I thought I gave you guys a better version. Oh, I think I put it in a comment over here. She had put community space, but we have in our zoning bylaw cultural use.
Mhm.
So my suggestion is to go by the use and the definition that's currently in our zoning bylaw, cultural use. Then she wanted to add co-working space, which I'm totally fine with. And you will see in the articles that I sent you today, I included a draft definition of co-working space. She wanted to add educational uses non-exempt. I'm fine with that. Number 13, I'd like to clean up that language. Instead of what she put here, I would do artist, studio, or gallery because it's currently in our zoning bylaw. And catering services, once again, is currently in our zoning bylaw.
Mhm.
But you're right, there's a different version. I have a different version that's,
Once again, unfortunately, I don't have the access to my documents through my laptop. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to make do with this one. So under accessory uses, playground for residents is already covered below in the open space section. So I was interested in deleting that. I was also interested in deleting the home personal service because the whole point, when you look at the definition in our zoning bylaws for home personal service, the whole point is that they have customers coming to their home. So if we don't want customers coming to their home, then we shouldn't allow home personal service.
Bob, you have something there?
Yeah, I do. When you're talking about home professional office and home personal service, if you look under those in the zoning bylaws, it's for an owner occupied business. So if it's a rental, home professional office and home personal services will need a variance because those people living there do not own the property.
Oh,
No,
so it's coming out
so-
anyways.
so maybe we should just get rid of it, although some of these could be ownership. You know, they could be condos. They don't necessarily have to be rental.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly fine, but we have had cases in town where, somebody is renting a condo or renting an apartment and they want to have a home personal service and they've had to go to the ZBA to get a variance from that. So, if you have this in here as an accessory uses that are permitted, that's going to create a lot because, I get a fair amount of requests from people living in Avalon, to do this type of thing, home professional office or home personal service. And I have to say no, because they're not an owner of the unit. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
okay, so should we take it out?
Unless the units that are being constructed or allowed to be developed are going to be owner occupied, then they should probably come out.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Although, like I said, there is a good chance that they could be owner occupied. If
Well,
they're
if-
condos.
If they are on, if they are owner occupied, then they would be allowed to, you know, um, have the home professional office or the home personal service through the default regulations in the base code of the bylaws. You know, some of those conditions, if it's owner occupied, some of them have to, some
Oh,
of them are
right.
allowed by right and some are allowed only by a special permit.
Does the underlying district apply? So the underlying district also applies, all the,
No,
Yeah.
no?
so it's an either or type situation.
Oh, okay.
So if you're gonna go with the overlay, you go with the overlay. If you're gonna go with the underlying, you go with the underlying. So you can't mix and match.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
So the
Okay.
only way you can mix and match is down below in F when we're talking about density and dimensional requirements. So under this, it says that you are going with the underlying zoning for everything except what's stated below, which has to do with the density and the height. Other than that, you have to adhere to the underlying zoning setback requirements, frontage requirements, minimum lot size requirements.
I mean, so Bob, it sounds like in the bylaws, it's defined as ownership. If we mention here the reference to ownership, would that alleviate maybe some of the confusion on the resident side over this, or?
Well, I think that they will just go to the definition. So when they go to the definition, they're gonna see that it says ownership.
Well, you have to be careful because the home professional office and the home personal service is not in the definitions, which is section 2 of the zoning bylaws. It's in the section of uses, where it actually describes those specific uses, whether it's a personal, professional office or personal service. So again, I think if you're worried about mixing and matching, you're taking a definition for these uses and you're using it out of another separate use code, as opposed to putting it in the definitions, which is section 2 of the bylaws.
Bob, I took all of these uses from the use table.
Yeah, right.
So that's generally what you do. So when you're looking to understand the use, you go to the definitions in the use table to see what they mean.
Right,
So,
but then you'd be mixing and matching again, as you guys said before. Am I off base on that?
well, maybe what I could do is I could say, look to that section for the definitions.
For use table.
So you're
yeah.
gonna look to the use table for the definitions.
Just footnote it or something?
Yeah, so I'll add that note.
So we're gonna leave home personal service in?
I was gonna take that out because
Yeah.
like I said, you don't want any customers to come, so that doesn't.
That was a suggestion by the state, like if you're having apartment buildings, like they didn't suggest having customers coming and going.
Right. Yep.
So I will do that.
Okay.
All
And
right,
playground's coming out because Lori had it already at the bottom. Just to move it along quicker, because I had already talked to her about it, so.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Yep.
okay, so then when we get to the density and dimensional tables. So because you folks said that you don't want mixed use in the Southwest Connector District, I'm fine with eliminating that. However, multifamily dwellings, if you want to use the Avalon, then we'll have to increase the height to 60 feet because they have buildings that tall. I think they're like
Interesting.
58 feet.
Mhm.
Okay.
So then down below, we're in the downtown multifamily zoning district. I don't believe Amy had any changes there. So we can move along. Actually, her next change doesn't come until 7. I'm fine with including that language.
Oh, my only
Yeah,
comment
sure.
was actually, I
You
looked
changed
up,
the-
760 CMR 45.
Yep.
And it was replaced with 760 CMR 56. Because I was
Okay.
just questioning, because the state had 760 CMR 56, and I was wondering why our number was different. And I think I sent an email, but it was probably yesterday, that 45's actually been replaced with 56. So if you want to, I would recommend replacing the 45 with the 56, and you can look it up and double check.
Yep, happy to do that. Anybody have any comments on that?
No, that's great. Thanks for looking that up.
Hmm,
Okay, so now we go to design standards. So I had actually deleted this, Amy. Amy had added this 2-family homes, but we're not allowing 2-family homes in our MDOD district. So I didn't think that that would be appropriate.
I don't even remember that one being there.
Okay.
I don't know why I would
There-
add it, because most of them are apartments.
Hmm.
So I don't know why I would add that.
So then you wanted to add some additional language to bullet C, which I'm fine with. And then under D, you wanted to add stucco to the list of no materials that aren't allowed. And then you wanted to just specify just all metal, not necessarily finished or unfinished metal. I'm fine with that. Any comments about that?
No,
Would that eliminate a metal roof? Because I know those are a new thing that I'm seeing a lot of, and they look like
Mhm.
shingles, but it's actually metal. So I don't see anything saying siding.
Yeah, it's not really talking about roofing materials. It's only talking about like the siding itself.
Yeah, but I don't think it says siding. It just says finished materials.
Right, but then it talks about brick, high quality brick face, wood, stone, high quality stone face. You wouldn't put any of those on a roof.
is metal not a somewhat traditional New England style roof?
And this isn't roofing materials.
Right.
Bob, you have a question too?
Yeah, are you excluding vinyl siding?
Yes.
Because there are a huge variety of different styles of siding that is made from vinyl. I mean, you can get board and batten in vinyl, you can get shingle style, you can get carved cottage style, not just, straight clapboards. I think you're taking a lot out of the design potential if you eliminate vinyl. There are some amazing vinyl products out there that don't look like vinyl at all.
Amy, do you have anything in mind when you said vinyl?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, did
I
you?
think
Oh, it
vinyl
was already
already
there.
addition? Oh, that was already there?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
Lori,
was-
Yeah,
that was
vinyl's
what
already
I-
there.
But that's what all the other towns are doing, even for downtown, and like I mean, I didn't add it, it was there, but that's what the other
Okay,
towns
fine.
are saying.
So Lori, what
'Cause
did
it-
you have in mind when you put vinyl in?
I mean, I guess vinyl has come a long way, but
Mhm.
personal taste, I'd rather have like a cement board or wood instead of vinyl. It just doesn't look as good in my opinion. But I'm open to suggestion if you folks want to include vinyl in the list of acceptable materials. I'm happy to change that.
Any board member thoughts on that?
I'm okay with vinyl. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it has come a long way. I definitely don't think the metal or aluminum siding is something we'd like to see.
A lot of like the local design reviews have taken out vinyl because it fades and cracks, and I don't know, it doesn't
Right.
matter to me as much, but that's just what I'm hearing. And a lot of the towns that have gone through like their downtown, if it's gonna be downtown as part of the downtown revitalization, I
Mhm.
think when it went in front of design review, they would say no vinyl. So you hate to lead someone astray.
Yeah, but I would say that, stone or brick, if it's not taken care of, is going to do the same thing. It might take a little longer, but, I
Paint.
see plenty of buildings downtown now that, could really use some brickwork.
Mhm.
Anthony, thoughts from you on this one?
I just don't know if you can do some design standards of saying it can be this, but it can't be that if it's vinyl, and I don't have the wording for it.
Um, I honestly don't feel strongly about vinyl either way.
You know.
So do you want me to delete vinyl from that?
Well, the only place I do care about it is not care about it, but downtown, to Amy's point, is the one area that I would like
Yeah.
to see like a nicer standard upheld. So I don't know if there's a way to, I don't want to make it a nightmare to like, follow the path on this one, but
Well, we have like that anything can be waived. At the bottom, Lori said that anything in this bylaw can be waived by the planning board. So if a developer came forth and said, you know what, I really can't afford the new hardy board, can you waive it and let me do vinyl? They could do it.
Well, see,
Oh.
and that's a perfect solution, because then it gives an opportunity to have some oversight prior to
Yeah.
something happening. And then maybe if it's this fancy new vinyl that doesn't look like vinyl, and that makes sense, then we can do.
okay.
What's the
We can leave it in.
consensus? Include it or not include it?
It sounds like it's okay to include, but as long as there's some sort of like anything can be waived if,
Well, I think keep it out, and then you could add it with a waiver. later.
oh, take it out. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. Is that what the board's saying? Take it
No,
out?
I think you leave it the way it's worded now. And then
Oh,
at
right,
the
because
bottom
it's saying
it
it
says
shall
if
not be
there-
used.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then if someone comes forward and wants to do it, they can say, just like we get all the time, can we have a waiver on that?
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
does that capture what everyone was just saying? I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
All right,
Mhm.
great.
Okay. So then the next change doesn't come until letter J. So I'm gonna just read you the language that I included because there were some modifications. So as you remember, at the last year's town meeting, we eliminated above ground utilities, electric cable and telephone for under site plan review. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. So I modified J to read the placement of gas meters, electric meters, compressors, transformers, etc. along the street facing facade should be avoided unless there are compelling reasons to do so and they are screened from view. So it's a hybrid of what is proposed here.
I think that's okay. Any
Yeah, I
other-
think that's fine.
Well, how do you determine compelling reasons then? Is that just because it goes back to,
Like in other words, National Grid says, we're gonna put the transformer here. And like one of the, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If your electrical line is coming from the roadway, then the transformer has to be either to the front or the side of your building, depending upon how far it is set back from the street. You can't put it behind. If your electric service is coming in from behind your building, then you have the flexibility of putting it behind. Bob, correct me if I'm wrong.
The real simple way to look at it is the utilities, particularly gas and electric. If it's going underground, they will tell you where it's going to go. End of discussion. They're not really ones to negotiate or get into design review. They are there strictly for utility and access to their hardware. So I would say, what you've got, what's here in red where are not permitted, I would say shall be discouraged. Because I understand what you're saying, these things aren't real good looking. Screening from view, I think, is reasonable. But they're always going to be there. I don't care how well you screen it. That big giant green transformer is always going to be out there. So, softening the look, fine. Having it listed here as not permitted. I think, you're going to run into issues with the utilities. Because like I've said before, they are not one to negotiate for placement of these things. At least not in my experience.
Lori changed the wording to say shall be avoided
That's good.
unless, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that seems to work then.
Yeah, I think the last thing you want is to have to, you don't want to run anything under the building, right? To come up in the back.
Well, the
Right.
utilities
Gas
won't
or-
either.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, they wouldn't have access to it. So I think that makes sense.
When Dario was on
Same.
design review, he was surprised by how many buildings where the utilities were on the front, because as an architect, he said a lot of times they put them on the side. They're not underneath into the back, but he said if they're agreeable, the utilities, it's better to stick them on the side versus front and center. But I think Lori, when they're updated point, it says, it's not forcing it.
All right, so then we get to the common open space. So under E, I'm fine with that language. So this means that if you have 40 or more units, you need to include an outdoor amenity. So then down below, I wanted to add this bullet: common open space shall not include parking lots, driveways, roads, or ways necessary for access or egress to the site. I had that above in C, but for some reason I forgot to put it down below. So I just wanted to add it down below. So then under letter D, originally Amy wanted, so Amy's comments are in red and then mine are in blue. MDOD projects containing 40 or more dwelling units. She wanted to strike out may and put shall include additional outdoor amenities. Amenity including boardwalks, etc. My concern is that, of course, if you put shall, then that means that they have to include all of these outdoor amenities, which is going to be really hard in a downtown area where you only have a 20% open space set aside. And obviously, if you're not adjacent to a river, it makes no sense that you have a boat launch and fishing areas. So I changed the language to read that they shall include an appropriate outdoor amenities, such as, so they can choose whichever outdoor amenities they'd like.
Yeah, I took my wording from the state. I didn't mean they shall include them all. Definitely not. But the ones in the state had that any project over 40 included one of the outdoor amenities, any of them. But not all of them.
Okay, so I think we're in pretty good shape with the bylaw. Does anybody have any comments for anything that's missing that should be added or changed?
No,
in
I
the
think,
bylaw itself?
I personally don't. Any board members have anything that,
No, I think these are really good
I do not.
adaptations, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
All right, so I'm gonna stop share this. So now should we go back to discussing sites? Amy, you had a new site that you wanted to propose?
Well, just an idea if people didn't want Hudson Street. Let's see
You
if
wanna
I can find it. Have it up on my. See if it will show pictures. This is, I don't know, if I make it bigger, can you see it when it gets bigger?
yes.
So this is downtown, this is Main Street, this is the town hall.
Hmm.
And this is Center Drive. And Laura, you had it included Hudson Street, Harvey, and then this section. So what I was doing is if Avalon was 38 acres, I was looking for another 15 acres. And this includes the Old Town Hall, Center Drive, which is affordable housing. I think you would include it, Lori. And this is a multi-use building already. And then there are a couple houses.
Hmm.
And those totaled 5.27 acres. And then there's a property off of Whitney Street where the candle factory was. And that is multi-use housing just like Avalon, and it's close to 10 acres. So I thought if Hudson Street was going to drop, a lot of traffic onto Hudson Street, and the baseball area is going to fill the school too much with 300 units, that we could do what Westboro was doing and other towns are doing and pick some sites, that could be developed someday, but also already have developments on them.
So wait, this still doesn't get us, this is Avalon plus this.
Avalon plus this would get us over 50 acres. And I think might need one more acre, and you could either use, if people really wanted to include Harvey, you could do 2 or 3 acres of Harvey. You can include the house here. But this is 5.27 acres, and this is 9.38
Oh,
acres.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
And what's
I
the
actually-
circle, like with, at the top there, you have
Oh,
some.
I was gonna go and look and see if this is a bridge, because this is Whitney Street and this is a lot of multifamily housing, and this is a river that goes through town.
That's the railroad, I thought. No?
Yeah, that's a railroad.
Oh, there is water back here too. The river maybe right here.
Uh,
I was thinking. So I wanted to know what this
Oh,
was. I
it
don't know if
does
this
sort
is a
of follow the
crossing into
river there, but
downtown.
it looks like a railroad bridge going over the river. Do you see
I
what I'm
don't
saying?
know. I only circled it because I wanted to figure out what it was, because it actually would tie in this huge multifamily dwelling units to the downtown. Because we were talking about
think
walkability
it's a-
downtown.
I think it's a railroad bridge going over the river.
I suspect it's actually a culvert
Could be. It's either. or it's
because
either
you
over or
have
under.
a stream on both sides.
Yeah,
I
Culvert,
suspect it's a
yeah.
culvert going under the railroad.
yeah.
Okay, I was just curious. That's why I circled it. I didn't know what it was. But yeah, so these were just some areas downtown that might still get us access to grants, but it wouldn't be, choosing Hudson Street, which, as Bill said, we may not be able to stop how many units they develop.
But this proposal involves the construction of absolutely 0 units.
That's what other towns are doing. That's what Westboro did.
But Westboro has a different downtown.
When I have to apply for these grant applications, I have to demonstrate that there's actually like development possible.
What
And
I
about,
said a couple acres
Hudson
of
Street? Yeah, I
Harvey.
mean, sorry, Harvey. Yeah, Bob, did you have your hand up for something, or is that from last time?
Yeah, I did actually. I just went on GIS with the aerial photograph. That bridge you folks were talking about. There's a little stream or something like that, and the railroad has a bridge that goes over that stream.
Oh,
Oh, so you
So-
could cross the stream?
Hmm?
So people can people walk across?
No, no, it's
No,
a
it's a
stream and there's a
culvert.
railroad bridge that goes over the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Oh,
Bob, that is actually the railroad. So it
Yeah.
can't be a railroad bridge going, oh, I mean,
The
so the
railroad,
stream is beneath the railroad.
that is correct.
Yep.
Yes.
That is correct.
So it's not really for pedestrian, Amy.
Uh,
Okay.
It's
walk
just
on the
water
track.
Unless,
under.
okay.
but if we added the Harvey area, does that satisfy? Lori,
But
what
not
you'd
the
be trying to
whole
do?
10 acres. Would you put the whole 10 acres on there?
No, but before we talked about half of Harvey, didn't we?
Yep.
And then save the other half for like multi-use or whatever. We talked about like, if you could build up over there with housing and like some sort of funky river walk, and we only did half of it, we'd leave half for like, shops and stuff like that, and then half for the residential.
Yeah, I mean, the other half is located in the MSR district. So you can't do much in the MSR district. Let's see.
But it would have the overlay. So you could do everything that we allowed by the overlay.
Well, the MSR district is here. It's along Main Street. So it bisects the parcel. So the Hudson Street underlying zoning district is neighborhood business or business neighborhood.
Mhm.
And then the lower part is the MSR district. So in the MSR district, it's primarily a residential district. It does allow a bed and breakfast, a medical or dental office, a funeral home, adult daycare, cultural use, and a limited mixed-use building.
What if this
It
is our
doesn't-
above and beyond, or that doesn't help us? If this is our above and beyond mixed use sub-district?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking, right? What we're talking, we still concentrate the 50 acres out near Route 9, Route 20, and then we create a second district for the downtown revitalization here that doesn't necessarily have to be 15 units per acre, but we can require multi-use.
Well, right now, the underlying zoning already allows mixed use,
Mhm.
Oh,
but
okay.
it only allows, I think it's 6 units per acre.
The density, yeah.
In the downtown
even-
neighborhood, you can do 5 units by right and 8 units by special permit.
If we did 2 acres here, that would give them 30 units, which is a lot more than they have access to right now. It was just an idea because I actually wouldn't want to develop the baseball area because I think that's way too much housing. We already added to Proctor.
Well, if we added the Harvey spot, like whatever number that acreage is, we could always come back at a later date and expand this district if we wanted to.
Yep, and grants are never promised, like, we've never gotten these grants in the past, so I
But
don't know.
I've received a lot of grants. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you what they require. So
So Lori, what's the baseline in your experience, like that we'd have to add to what you're looking at here that would make us a true candidate for these grants?
So in my Millbury project, there was a 46 unit multifamily development that helped me. So they were like dual partners with me in order to get a 1.2 million MassWorks grant. So I wasn't really eligible for that grant without that 46 unit development.
And how many acres was that? Or I guess it's a whole different density.
That would be
but-
3
I
acres of
think it was
Harvey.
4 acres. So
Okay.
that's a
So-
garden style apartment building. and it's fully constructed now.
And so would that be fewer acres with the higher density? Or what do you
Yeah,
do
I
with
mean,
high density?
that's super high density, so 40, I think it's 46 units. So, 46 units divided by 4
acres, that's
acres,
like
that's
10.
11.5 units per acre.
Okay, so it sounds like Millie or Anthony reactions to this, and Bill, you too, but I think I heard you, you, Bill, are, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'll start with you, Bill. What is your thought on this one?
I think this is fine as long as, if we're limiting the acreage that we're putting on Hudson Street. Like I said, my concern was a whole 13 acres, but if we're limiting the acreage that's going to be there, but to Lori's point, what you're looking for is you're looking for open space for developers to build in downtown, and there's not a lot of that there, unfortunately. But that's the reality of the situation.
The benefit of including the Harvey property is there is the potential to have a roadway, because there already is a roadway that bisects the property and connects Hudson Street to Main Street. So
Mhm.
that way you have two possible means of, half the cars can go on Hudson Street and half the cars can go on Main Street, or they can all go on Main Street. You can make it a one-way street. So if the concern is traffic, then the Hudson Street 10-acre parcel, the Harvey property, makes the most sense because of the ability to create that road that goes through the center.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, they could have a driveway coming out on both sides, right? Is that what you're saying? One on Main Street and
That's
one on,
exactly what I'm saying.
yep.
okay.
I think that makes
Millie and
sense.
Anthony, sorry, Bill, I cut you off there. Millie and Anthony, reactions from either one of you?
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that. I think that is less traffic congestion, to Bill's point, with that density on going onto Hudson Street, to work with both Main Street and Hudson Street parcel.
And Anthony, thoughts from you?
So I like this approach that Amy presented with the parcel she's put up. And I'm not opposed to the Harvey site. I think it's positioning towards the center of town and Main Street is perfect. However, I think limiting that entire lot in some manner, and I don't know what that sizing looks like, but limiting it so it's not entirely developed, or we do more of a mixed use. So maybe it's the end towards Main Street is where you'd have some residential and your Riverwalk, and then towards Hudson Street, if there's something, we zone that differently. So whether it is, I don't know, some more commercial and or, businesses on that end. I mean, the traffic part of it, I don't know how to alleviate that. I mean, I think it's going to be a concern no matter what we do. But I don't see developing that entire parcel with residential, but certainly a portion of it.
Yeah.
We could do the, remember, we have the incentive in there for the mixed use. So that way it could be the vertical or horizontal. So they could just have, like a restaurant along Main Street, and then they could have the apartments. So it could even be a single-story restaurant, and then you have the apartments behind. And then the same thing on Hudson Street. You could have, first floor retail with the apartments above, and then, the open space. So when you finally get to see the downtown revitalization plan, they proposed an entire park along the river. So it'd be like a river walk and then a playground in the center. It looks pretty neat. So it would be a combination of a recreation amenity as well as the mixed use.
The only concern I have is if you put the 10 acres of Harvey into MBTA and the mixed use is a may, not a shall, then you're just gonna get 150 housing units. Well, what is it? 15 times 10, 150
Yeah.
housing units? And they don't have to do the park, like Riverwalk. They don't have to do any restaurants. They don't have to do any mixed use. They could just do the 150 units and walk away, and then we've lost the possibility of Riverwalks and
No, because they're still gonna have to go through site plan approval and they're still required to do an open space amenity. So that would all be negotiated. And if instead of building 750 units, the only number of units that you get out of this state mandate is 150 units, then the town's really getting off light. Because
Right,
the
but
other
you think-
areas are already developed, so they're not gonna be developed more. I mean, possibly Avalon might expand. Maybe if the town hall moves, that will be housing, but it may not move, in which case it's still the town hall.
so would you include Harvey and then the town hall to give it incentive or no? Just you'd take out all this and so our other, well, that's still 10 acres and we need 5 more. So would you include Harvey as 10 and this is the other 5?
Yes. So
Yeah,
it'd be 15 acres.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
expand your line right over. Right, your north line there,
Mhm.
right
Yeah,
over on the other
just
side of Harvey.
Right over here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, how do we, so I just wanna make sure I understand. How do we prevent 100% of the residential use of that 10 acres?
You really can't.
Unless you include 5. Then you
Unless we
get
only-
so many.
unless we
pa-
limit- Oh,
But
so wait,
still, I mean, that's, first of all, you gotta remember it's owned by a multinational corporation that's headquartered in Texas. So,
Mhm.
I mean, there is a possibility they won't want to release this land.
150 units downtown though, even the master plan we were talking about, like, that might be a lot of units.
I don't see it all happening at
150
once.
units. Remember, if you want a vibrant downtown, you need people living in the downtown. That
Look
is
at
the key.
Hudson. I can go
That is
back
the
and forth
key.
with you on this forever. Hudson has a parking problem.
And they have
Because everybody
1,000
drives.
and we've already done the analysis. They have more than 1,000 people, more than Northborough does, living in their same geographic area, the same size circle from a downtown point. They have over 1,000 people more living in it. That's why they have a vibrant downtown. If you have a downtown where nobody lives, then what's going to happen is the people are going to go home and your downtown is going to close down at 5 o'clock, which is exactly what happens today.
Mhm.
If you drive to all the restaurants though on a weekend, if they put in 2 restaurants, there would be packed. Like every single restaurant in town this weekend I drove by at night and there isn't enough parking.
Well, this weekend I would say is not probably a good representation because it's super busy this time of year.
I know, but I did it in the summer too.
But I've sat in a number of I know a number of the business owners in downtown Hudson, and I can't tell you how many times the local residents pop in for something, pop in for that, pop out for this, go for takeout. Probably a good percentage of their business, maybe 25% of their businesses, of at least 4 of them in town, I would say are people walking because they live nearby. Now, they're not staying and having big meals, but they are a lot of the frequent businesses.
Yes.
I think to Lori's point, you do have to have people. You have to have people living in town to make it a vibrant downtown. So there's got to be a compromise somewhere. You can't
Right.
have none and you can't have some. And 150 isn't going to come in, overnight. Maybe you can phase it, like you do in subdivisions. But to the point, if we only get 150 units out of 750 that we have to build new or accommodate new,
It's a
It's
lot for that one school that's gonna get it. Like,
But
you look
Amy,
at,
Amy,
district
all right,
school
you
by
guys
then,
can vote for it.
25
I
I'm
won't.
down the
talking
road.
multifamily. Multifamily does not generate a lot of school children. It doesn't. Single
Oh,
That's
well,
fine. We can agree to disagree.
4-bedroom homes generate a lot of school children. 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments do not generate a lot of school children. This
The
is
base-
not going to be a generator of children. The people who are going to be interested in living here, chances are young professionals just starting out. They're going to be empty nesters who no longer want to take care of their 2-acre property and their 3,000 square foot home. They're going to be people who want to walk to businesses and to the library. It's either a young crowd or it's a retired or empty nester crowd, or single professionals who are in the middle.
And-
You're
and those are
not
people
gonna
we
find
don't-
families living here.
Can I
We
just say
don't-
one thing? The baseball facility that was gonna build apartments, they wanted 48 3-bedroom homes. 78 West Main Street, that's building apartments on top of other apartments, they did 3 bedrooms. Like, the developers want to fill these, like, they're not gonna care if they get seniors. They're not gonna care if they get the young people who wanna live, downtown. They're gonna wanna sell apartments for the most money they can get.
Well, but that's typical no matter what you do. I mean, I think if we looked at the demographics in this town, what we don't have and what either they've lived here for 30 years and they can't afford to live here and they move out, or they're young and they can't afford to live here, so they don't. So we don't have the demographics right now that say we're going to support a vibrant downtown community. The younger people can't afford to live here, or there's no housing at all for them, and the older people are moving out. So, we got to have a compromise somewhere. We can't have none. And that's, putting in 10 acres or 5 acres here and there, I think is helpful in our downtown area. Those 2 areas that have been circled out don't really add that much. I do think we need to do something about that. There's a compromise here somewhere.
my one thing would just be like, so I'm not opposed to that. If we can, how do we mitigate the risk of it? All residential. I feel like I keep
Right.
asking this. Maybe I just don't like the answer, but can we make it so there's no way to make it so that they're incentivized to do half and half? I mean, that would be the winning recipe in my mind.
We are incentivizing by allowing them to go taller.
Hmm.
So if they want to get to the 45 feet, they have to do horizontal or vertical mixed use. Otherwise, the buildings can't be any taller than 35 feet.
Hmm. Does that matter a whole lot?
Well,
That
can
does
get-
matter.
Yeah, acreage, their use per foot is significantly different.
So is that better? But what about if we actually just, like Millie, to your point about phasing, like just did 5 acres at a time over there, like put out the 5 acres, see what comes of it, and then add 5 more. So that
Mhm.
way we don't have, like, what if it is our worst case scenario where they just want 100% residential and there's nothing we can do versus, I don't know, is there a way to, should we consider phasing it a little bit? So it just, at least it forces phases if that's what we're gonna get.
Well, remember, we have to get to the 50 acres.
Well, we still get
So-
to 50, even if we did 5. If we did, like, if we kept this 9 over there
Mm-hmm.
and the 5 over here, or instead of that clip with town hall, we take that out and just do 5 at Harvey, that would be a 15. And then if we want to add 5 more, if somebody comes in with some amazing proposal, like, we could add 5 more, couldn't we?
Nobody's going to want to wait a year to go to town meeting for maybe. It's just not going to happen. So especially if it's only 5 acres.
Well, keep in
Wait.
mind too that one of the things we're talking about here is we're assuming that Harvey is going to sell or build, right? There's no, to Lori's point, they're down in Texas. right? They're not watching this meeting. They don't care what we do or what we don't do. You know, all they care about is my property still there? Yep, okay. And that's
Did you
it.
talk to them,
Right.
Lori?
I only spoke to the gentleman who works at E.L. Harvey. So E.L. Harvey was purchased in 2001 by a multinational corporation that owns, apparently they're the third largest private trash hauler in the United States, and they also have a presence in Canada.
Hmm.
So, no, I haven't. I haven't called the president of the corporation to let him know about this property. The gentleman who came to our community outreach meeting said that he would forward the information to his contact at the parent company, but I haven't heard anything since.
But this is the case with any parcel. There is no land that's
Exactly.
just wide open. Everything requires someone to sell it or, right? Is there any place that we're considering that actually doesn't require somebody to sell that land or
We could zone this and they never sell it, or they don't sell it
in
for
any
50
scenario though?
That's
Right.
true. So this is all very,
Well, we
in
do
some
have
ways, very hypothetical.
we do have two cases where people have come in front of us with properties that they want to develop, right? The one is on Hudson Street and the other one is the baseball fields,
Mhm.
right? So we know that they want to develop those. Now, one of them doesn't help downtown and one of them does.
Mhm.
But the problem is that in order to, unless we can break, there's no way we can do the overlay in just a part of that property on Hudson Street, so it eliminates them from being able to build on the hill.
No, we could still put like the 3 to 4 acres right there. We can pick
Yep.
just that 3 to 4 acres and then add it with like this, and then you don't do the Harvey. But
Well, remember, it has to be contiguous.
mhm.
So we
Well, then you'd
need,
have to do 5.
we need 5 contiguous acres at a minimum.
Right, but I think what Amy's saying is if you take that 9.38 that's on the top there and move that line over to the east, right, but not take up that whole property.
Just do 5.
Well,
Right.
that's not contiguous though, is it? If there's a
No, but you can
number
have
in
5 solo. You can have, but wait, isn't 5 the minimum?
So
But
this is the 13-acre parcel. You know, I have another,
Let me just stop sharing.
I can bring up the, if you want me to, let me open up the other map that I did. Just bear with me a minute.
Why don't we just do the 5 on Harvey?
Instead of 5 on Hudson?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well-
I know if I think about 150 units downtown and for that school there as a resident, I would vote no at town meeting, but that's just me. Because there are a lot of people who spoke out and said, sure, they do want a vibrant downtown, but they also didn't want high density housing and a lot of housing. You know, maybe if we're going to meet in the middle, we do half of it, like you were saying, Carrie.
All right, so what do you got there, Lori? What are we looking at? I gotta
So,
reopen.
so the starred areas are the areas that Judy Barrett included in the analysis.
Mhm.
So I know the developable area for those particular parcels. So this is the 13-acre parcel. Of course, they were proposing just to do the development in this area here because there are significant slopes. It's very, very expensive to develop this area because of the ledge and the significant slopes. So if you are over the Mass Pike in downtown Boston, sure, it's worth spending that amount of money to develop a hard to develop area. But in Northborough, I don't think that it would be financially viable to develop this very steep ledgy slope. So then we have 56 Hudson, the two parcels that were proposed for the Little Pocket Park. They were talked about last time. Judy Barrett did an analysis on half of the 10-acre Harvey parcel. Then we did the analysis on the town hall property. We did not do the analysis on the housing authority property. And I did not include these parcels that Amy had included in her map. So those were not analyzed either.
So I guess my question is I know what you said about the ledge, right? Can we draw the line so that it doesn't include the ledge
That's what I was thinking.
through the property line?
Like 6 acres
Sure.
or 7 acres.
Sure, I mean, if that makes you feel more comfortable, I don't think it really impacts the development potential because there is no development potential up here.
Well, but I would hate, like I said, I would hate in 30 years for some new technology to come around and all of a sudden it makes it easy to be able to level that area. Right? And now it's already zoned and we can't change it.
Yeah, if
Me,
you
it
only
would
want to
either be-
include, if you want to include half of this parcel and half of this parcel, that's fine. We
For
can
me,
do-
I'd be an out. I'd be a no. I don't want to do both. I was one or the other.
Well, then it has to be the Harvey property because it has to be contiguous.
Wait, we could do the Hudson Street and then could we do the Hudson and the Candle Factory area?
Right, that's what I was saying. The candle factory area, and then to the all the way over to that 6 acres of
Right.
the Hudson Street,
And then plus Avalon.
and then plus Avalon, and then
Wanna
whatever we
do
need to
this
fill.
area,
Right,
this
that area.
area,
Yep,
this area here, half of this.
yep.
So is that considered contiguous if there's a railroad dividing it?
No, but I didn't, my understanding was that you just had to have like 5 as the minimum contiguous.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if that's true. That was just my understanding. So the whole, because otherwise Avalon wouldn't count because obviously Avalon's on the other side of town. It's not contiguous. Am I misunderstanding the rule?
The smallest area has to be 5 contiguous acres.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't quite sure.
So it can be more than 5 acres, but it can't be less than 5 acres.
I mean, we could even just draw a big circle right there. Right, the candle factory down around to where sorry, I can't, is Center Drive, and then come up back around Harvey and back up to the half of that property on Hudson. Just-
Where is Center Drive?
Down below the.
Oh,
the-
right here?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So you
just
wanna
draw
include all
one
this?
big circle right there. It doesn't
But you're
even,
not including the
But then you're
catering
including,
service, are you?
you're including all of these parcels in between.
yep.
But we
And
don't
that
even have
gives
to
us
do that
contigu-
though. No, it
No.
doesn't have to be contiguous though.
No.
It's as long as it's 5.
No, but I'm just saying that gives us area if we want to, if somebody wants to build out and add, the whole point here is to get people in downtown, right? So if we want to get people in downtown, why not make it just one big area instead of trying to do little pieces here and there?
Well, what's the difference between that and doing 13 acres on Hudson Street? You're gonna have the same amount of property dumping out on Hudson Street.
No, because
Oh,
you've
I
got it
see.
going out to Whitney, you've got it coming
And
down to
I
Main
see.
Street, you've got all these other exits, right? It's not just one.
So you're saying going all the way down to Main Street?
Or just where the green line is now on Center Drive.
So that's Hudson,
Right.
no? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that
Hudson.
empties
This
out
is
onto Hudson.
Hudson Street right here.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
not
what I thought.
necessarily going, you still got Main Street there.
So right now,
And
like I said, there's this driveway. So
Yeah.
you could potentially drive all the way from Main Street
See, I
to
like that.
Hudson Street.
I like that cut, or that
Right.
bypass. or
And that
cut
would be
through.
part of the circle. But instead, I mean, we're trying to divvy up, different areas of downtown. But why not just have it one big circle?
Well, what I was trying to do is I was trying to include areas that would be of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So, right now we already have, this is already a developed area. The talk is that if the town hall moves out of the current location, it would be affordable housing anyway. So that would enable us to get credit for something that is already preferred
Mm-hmm.
by many as being the ultimate reuse of this building.
Yep.
And this parcel right here is, we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This is a portion of this is a historic mill building. So, including 56 Hudson would encourage the preservation of this historic mill building. So that's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean,
but-
obviously this is developable. He wants to do something there.
Right. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is we include all of those plus what's in the middle. Because I see a bunch of open area in the middle there.
So you want to have all of these parcels plus these parcels here?
Yeah.
So you want somebody to be able to take down their house now and put up high density living there.
If somebody wants to do that, but that gets us the people downtown that we want, the walkable downtown.
I don't think it'll ever pass town meeting,
Not
but
a chance. This is like dropping a bag of rocks at town
yeah,
meeting.
I mean, when I started the planning board 10 years ago, people
like,
didn't
"Oh."
want duplexes.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna explode the whole downtown to high density housing, I don't,
I'm not saying
I
the
would
whole
never
downtown.
propose it.
I'm not saying the whole downtown though, right? I'm not saying the rest of Whitney Street or Church Street or Pierce Street or any of that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying I'm looking at the map and I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, right? Why are we not including the middle?
Because
It's gonna
that-
be too much housing.
a lot. People will take down their house, or somebody will buy their house and put up high density.
Well, and
Yeah.
And
That-
I
that
think that
house right in the
completely
middle there-
changes.
that house right in the middle is not occupied in an antique. I guarantee you that would come down in a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, I think the concern here that I would have in general, and I still have it, is that with this type of MBTA requirement, we are changing the nature of our downtown, whether we want to or not. We're being forced to. And I think that the better we can manage how that happens, the better off we'll be.
But I think that's also, that became clear in the master planning process, is that people want to change the downtown. They're not happy with the way it currently is.
That's true, that there is very little to attract people to the downtown. But I don't know if they want to change the nature of the there is something in our town that people do enjoy, and that's the community aspect that we want that. And I don't know if putting a whole bunch of that housing in there, I think there has to be a balance. What we don't want is, I think some of the things that were shown on the master plan were a bit much. I think this has to come in phases.
Now remember, this doesn't change anything about, Route 20. Or, any of the other aspects of downtown. So the historic buildings are maintained in the MSR district. So this is, Hudson Street is, a side street of downtown. I mean, it is a major street, certainly, but it's not the core.
Yeah,
The core is Route 20.
I don't have a problem with doing some of the mixed use high density. I just think people, we're trying to find a balance between the quaint New England downtown that we want to get to and overloading our school systems and creating havoc in our downtown that we aren't used to.
Well,
Plus,
just
if the
remember,
mixed use is in May, the developers, the money is in the housing. They're gonna put all housing in there. We'll get 150 units, no restaurants, and then where are they gonna go? We still have nowhere to go, like, they're gonna go to WCD and CVS, and if we
Well,
don't
but
get
that's-
any new places to go.
But that's, I think, to Millie's point, right? That's where we can do a multi-use, right, on say Blake Street, right, and not part of the MBTA, right, but part of the downtown revitalization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we create that there. We create something down on down South Street, right?
Yeah.
You know, we do that completely separate from the MBTA. So yeah, you get your 150 units, but you can also get, you know, and we have a bit more control over
Yeah.
what goes in the downtown.
you know, right now, so I did a little analysis. Right now, the town is averaging 0.48 school children per household. So if there's 150 new units, worst case scenario, that would be 72 students, worst case.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, you know, like I said, single family homes tend to create the vast majority of the children.
Mm-hmm.
It's not apartments that do that. So if you took 72 new students, so right now the town of Northborough is growing at a minuscule rate.
Right.
It's like 10 houses per year, which is far less than what I'm used to. You know, in the town of Millbury, we would grow by 60 houses per year. And I can tell you that it didn't really affect the school system because the vast majority of the units were multifamily homes. And there's very few children that come from them. And, you know, if you compare the school population today to where it was 12 years ago, there's been a decrease of approximately 400 students. So 72 students is far less than what they had 10 years ago, 72 additional students. So I think that there is an excessive concern for the school district when we're talking about a minimal number of units.
Mm-hmm.
150 units, probably, if you remember, the Trammell Crow was projecting, I believe, 38 students for 315 multifamily units. So if you're talking about 150 multifamily units, what is that, 10 students?
15.
Yeah, but they did one in Shrewsbury, and that's where they got their student numbers. They only had 4 3-bedrooms. The one they were doing in Northborough was going to have 48 3-bedrooms. And you can't say that people are going to start renting 3 bedrooms and not have kids. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Either way, I feel like this argument is in vain because if we go too far, it's never going to pass. This has very
Right.
little chance of passing. So I don't think we can make full big giant circles or pick a whole bunch of stuff and think we have the luxury to do it because I don't think it's going to pass. So we're just, I mean, my vote is to start small. Oh, sorry, Millie, I cut you off there. I can't see you.
No, I think I cut you off, but you know, we want to present something that's going to be manageable and pass, obviously.
Passable and manageable, I think
Yeah.
we need to go for, or it's not gonna, I mean, then what if we don't get something? I feel like if we can present a plan that says, we understand what we need to do, we're gonna run it in phases, here's what this looks like, we're starting off with like, you know, whatever these small little pieces are, we're gonna see how the traffic goes, what happens to the schools. And then, you know, if we're then add to it, I think it has a better chance of passing than if we show all of this plus whatever else. I think the chances of passing are very minimal. I don't know.
So,
agree.
so what is the consensus? I'm still confused. What are we talking about for the downtown area?
Maybe everybody should come back in January with a clear head and I don't know.
I mean, I
We
was
don't have to
surprised.
decide tonight.
Are we?
Go ahead,
You
Ann.
can also go to the public hearing with,
You have something
you
there?
know, like maybe
Hold on,
this
Laurie. I want to let
plan-
Anthony talk. Lori, I want to let Anthony talk.
Okay.
Board members give
So
their
are
opinion.
we, so I keep hearing about the downtown revitalization plan that we have not seen. Am I hearing something? Is that what I heard or am I
Mhm.
missing? Okay. I don't even understand why we're continuing this discussion until we see that plan, at least with something to build off of. I mean, maybe
Okay.
we're not
Yep.
gonna like it, maybe we like it, but I feel
Yeah.
like, because then we might see the plan and go, oh, duh, we should have thought of that. But
Yeah.
I think we're just kind of spinning our wheels right now.
Yeah.
You know, I think what I'm gonna do is tomorrow, I'm just gonna forward the plan. So Millie and Amy have already seen the plan. There's one last revision. It's almost ready for prime time. There's just a few more tweaks, so it's still in draft form. I'm just gonna send it to you because I think it's important for you folks to be able to see it to inform this discussion.
Mhm.
So then you'll have the opportunity, it's a meaty document, you know, you're not gonna be able to sit through, read the whole thing in one sitting, so you can review it in anticipation of our next planning board meeting, and then maybe that will help this discussion. That's a good point, Anthony.
Mhm.
Okay, so maybe we should just move on.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing. That was exhausting.
Ooh.
Okay.
All right, so do we want to do the sign bylaw next?
No. I
No.
say we wait till January.
Yep.
I still have 2 more questions and then we just do it then.
Okay, so do you wanna keep going? You wanna? I had some new article suggestions that I could
Sure.
go over with you.
Sure. Do you want to look at the new? And then I
Yeah.
want to make sure we cover the discussion of statement to sell land. And
Okay.
are we holding on, Laura, you sent over a letter about some bond releases. Are we holding that till January?
Yeah, let's hold that because I sent it to you so late and honestly, I didn't have a chance to review all the paperwork either. So I'd rather we all be informed before making the vote on that. Okay, so let me see if I've got the other one good to go. Just bear with me.
While she looks it up, I do have to say the design review met with Bob and Lori twice and we did go through the sign bylaw, so I think it's in pretty good shape. But there are just a couple other things to finalize.
That's great.
All right, I'm ready. Okay, so the red ones are new. So this was some changes that Amy had suggested. And then we talked through them. So it's a change to the design review bylaw. So the idea is that the design review committee would have the power to advise the building inspector on sign permit applications, but only in the downtown business district. So this would give them the authority to do that. So they would only review particular types of signs, so not every single sign that could possibly be installed. It would just be the electronic message center, so that particularly is the Lions Club sign, wall projecting, freestanding, awning, or permanent window signs. So some businesses choose to etch the name of their businesses in the window. So that would be subject to the review of the design review committee. If it's just another type of sign, like they have a special that they put in their window, the design review committee would not be involved in that. So then it would also give them the power to review new construction or expansion of any structure in the multifamily development overlay district. So then, once again, we're adding sign permit to the list of approvals. And then there's also modification to the composition of the design review committee. So we've been talking about the challenge of filling the committee. So
Mhm.
there's been an opening on the committee since I've started almost 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And then with Dario's resignation, the architectural seat has been opened. So one of the ways that we thought that it would be possible to fill some of those positions is to open up the field to people who aren't necessarily residents of the town of Northborough, but they were employed within the town of Northborough. So if there's an architectural firm within the town of Northborough, then it would enable an architect who doesn't live in Northborough to serve on the committee.
Mhm.
Can
What
I
do you
ask,
folks think of that?
these meetings happen usually during the workday, right?
They do.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
I would think.
It would
you
be a
might, but
conflict of interest, right? Because
Not necessarily.
they're working during they're having these meetings during their work time, especially if they're salaried.
So in my experience, I've had committees that have met during the day, and a lot of these disciplines work from home still. So they just arrange their schedule around the meeting. And oftentimes the employers are open to committee service. So, I mean, obviously it would have to be somebody who could do that. So
So-
if their employer says no, then they wouldn't be able to serve on the committee.
Do we even
Yeah, I
care
mean-
necessarily if they work here? I'm thinking like, what if you grew up here, but you live in the next town over and you want to come back and help the town you grew up in? Like, do we really, I feel like with this pool is so hard in general that any limits like that on it, even narrow it, like whether employed or live here. Could you live in Hudson, but you grew up here and you want to help out your old town?
Yeah.
I don't-
Well, but what's the range? I mean, you don't want somebody in California dialing into, do they have to be able to come into town for a meeting?
Oh, that's a good point, though.
And also, one of the things that I was concerned about is, you want somebody who with a strong familiarity with the town.
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
right.
That's true.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's certainly a step forward in opening up a little bit anyway.
Possibly, but
You think not, Millie?
what's that?
You think not?
I don't think you're gonna get much different response one way or another by adding it.
We can meet at night too if people wanted to, but the people who have been on the board in the past, we've had the 2 architects, we have a landscape designer. They don't seem to mind coming Thursday mornings for an hour and a half.
If they live in town though,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. If they
There's a
don't
couple
live in town.
architectural companies in town now,
Mm-hmm.
so we're gonna ask
We do
them if they
also
ever-
still do the vast majority of our meetings by Zoom, which is helpful. So then they can sit in their office, they can take a break. And, maybe during their lunch hour at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
They could,
yeah. I mean,
they
I don't
could
think it,
spend it with us, Amy and I, and Bob.
I mean, Again,
Okay.
I don't
Fine
think
with
there's
it.
any harm, but I don't really think it's gonna have a huge impact one way or another.
I think you're going to have a better impact if you make it, have the meetings at night when people are home.
Well, I guess we'll find
I
the
hate to
architect
I
and
hate to
see
change
what
your
he'll do.
schedule, Amy, but
No, it's been like this for years, like even way before me, it's always been in the morning.
Well, when the meetings are, we don't have to decide as part of the bylaw, but
Right.
is everybody okay with these changes here?
Yeah,
yeah, I think as long as one of the things to keep in mind is that the select board is paying a lot of money to redo the AV in the the selectmen's meeting room. I don't know if that's still what it's going to be called, but so they're going to want people to come in and use it, right? They're going to want all the committees to come in and start coming back into town. So I just want to make sure that we put something in there. If we are going to allow it to expand to outside of town, which I'm fine with, they have to be able to come into in-person meetings. I think
Well, I guess
we
that'd be part
do
of
need
it.
to
We
put that.
would interview anyway, so the planning board has don't we interview whoever
Yes.
applies for this?
Yeah.
So Bill, you'd be able to say, listen, can you come into meetings or no, or whatever questions you have, and then vote. If you think they can't or don't like them as a candidate, you can vote no as part of the
Right,
interview.
but if they move, we have nothing to say that they now have to leave the committee.
I think there's a 3-year.
Right.
They have to reapply every 3 years.
Right. I just
I think the way it exists now is if you move out of town, you have to resign
Okay,
because
So-
you're only, right now, you have to be a resident.
right. And so if we're changing it that you just have to work with a company that's here, they could be working remote,
yeah.
right? I really think there needs to, if we're going to open it up like that, then we really need something that says that they, can be here for in-person meetings.
Well, maybe that would be vetted during the interview process. That would be a tough thing to put into the bylaw itself.
Right. We just have to find an architect, so. Next step would be the interview.
So then we would modify the composition to allow more disciplines. So instead of 2 architects, it would be 1. Instead of a degreed landscape architect, it could be a person qualified in landscape design. And then 2 residents with these additional, so we'd include landscape design, architecture, historic preservation, civil engineering in the key disciplines that we would be seeking. So we could have, this would allow us to have 2 architects should 2 happen to apply. So are you folks okay with those disciplines? Do you want me to add any additional ones?
No, I like that.
Okay. So the next one we've already discussed, so I'm going to skip over it. Then we bounce down to site design standards. So this was an Amy recommendation. So what this does is says, so this is for business districts. So this would be all business districts. So building finish materials shall be appropriate to traditional New England architecture and may include this. So it's the same language that we just talked about in the other bylaw. Vinyl, metal, or fiberglass as a primary finished surface shall not be used. And then flat roof. So I think this is also taken from the multifamily development district. Flat roofs may be allowed on multi-story buildings as long as the roof line projects outward from the building surface as a decorative cornice or parapet.
Actually took both of those from Milbury, I think, because we've been talking about in design review for years not having metal buildings along Main Street because they're more of an industrial use. So I know when Lori, when you came here, you mentioned Milbury had it. So I went back to the Millbury bylaws and I pulled out their bylaw. And then I saw the flat roof one because that's come up a lot, even like talking about the fire station. But not, this isn't towards the fire station, but we've had a couple other buildings that came forward with flat roofs. And I went to downtown Hudson and they look okay as long as there's some sort of decorative top to the top of them. It's just not a plain flat roof. Like, and this is more for like the downtown revitalization and Main Street. It doesn't even have to be anything super expensive or fancy, but just some type of something at the top of the building. So the flat roof just isn't flat.
So
And I was
when
thinking
you-
on all buildings, not multi-story, like there are a lot of single, like story buildings that were going up too, that if there's just a flat roof, I
but
know it just,
the way this is described, if you said to me, as long as the roof line projects outward from the building surface, it seems to me that you actually want that flat roof to project out. I think what you're looking for is more of a facade that projects up, that might be like I was in downtown Hudson today. A lot of those facades are fake front silhouette.
that's like the parapet, right? I was just even thinking like some of them, I was looking at Hudson Appliance
but-
because I was driving by it and it was like a crown molding top or, you know, it wasn't.
But,
Yeah,
but you're saying you can have the flat roof, but you've got to extend it and you can have a cornice or a parapet, but it's still flat.
Millie, I think you're right. It should be upward.
I think so.
Yeah, because when you say outward, it makes like it sound like it should be projecting forward from the building instead
okay. I
of.
just took it
up
from
from the-
Millbury's.
So
I
I'll
just
change
took
that
it-
word from outward to upward.
Upward to
Yes.
give a silhouette or a not flat.
Yep. I think that's a better choice of words.
Did anyone else have to look up parapet?
If you join the design review committee, you'll learn it. I had to learn it. And I still probably I don't know what it is all the time.
Bob, if you're still on, maybe you can describe it.
I am still here. A parapet makes sense. I'm also a little concerned about parenthesis E, where you talk about vinyl. Primary finished surface shall not be used. I think you're missing an opportunity for some pretty unique design features. But it's your call.
Is this downtown though, only? Is this only
No,
downtown?
this would be all business districts.
Mhm.
So it'll be all of Main Street.
It would be everywhere there's a business district, so not just Main Street.
Right.
Another
But if you
question
go-
I would have is if somebody were to come to me to change the siding of the building.
It would not be triggered. So it's only if you're going through site plan approval.
Okay,
So, Carrie,
Yes.
if you think of a retaining wall on the top of a building, that's what a parapet is. So usually it's decorative. So like if you think of the castle and how it has like a wall where the soldiers used to stand and they
Yes.
duck down to shoot their arrows.
Okay, that sounds perfect for downtown. For everybody walking.
Exactly.
We can throw water
I know what
balloons
you mean.
over and make it really vibrant downtown.
Okay, thank you. I think I know what that means.
A lot of
Okay.
times they use them to hide like the mechanical structures on top if you have like all the AC units and stuff. It's like yeah.
So the next one, I was having so much trouble. I don't know why there's a line through the letter A. I didn't intend that, and I finally gave up for tonight. But so this is an existing bullet. It's an off-street parking bullet. So it's just changing the language. So this became evident when we were reviewing the ice cream property. So the building itself is not perpendicular to the roadway because the roadway comes in an angle. So it's kind of shaped like a triangle. So we were having a difficult time interpreting this language because it said no parking shall be located closer to the front lot line than the front line of the principal structure nearest to the front lot line. So we didn't really know what that meant. So the idea is to change that language so it says the corner. So if you have a building that is perpendicular to the right of way, then the entire front face of the building will be closest to the right of way. But if it's at an angle, then it's clear that it's the corner that we're measuring by instead of, you know, the front line of the building. So
Before I-
that's just.
I
Oh,
just
go
like
ahead.
to see how other towns do it, like, because I know I talked to Dario about this with the ice cream and he thought it made sense. You know, he wrote that long letter about how to read the bylaw.
It's pretty clear it did not make sense. Laurie and I put our heads together and could not come up with a way to fall down from the top of the fence. Okay, that's when we said it's up to the ZBA to figure out, and they couldn't figure it out. Dario can write wherever he wants, but Laurie and I are the main interpreters of this thing, and it needed to be rewritten.
Can you, for the next meeting, draw a picture just to show me how it changes and what it means? Like, I can-
This is in line with Dario's interpretation.
oh, okay. I just wanted to double check because he had drawn a picture. So I just wanted to see how this would look. Like, I understand the way you're describing it, but I'm kind of a visual person. So, It
It
would
looks
make
like
more-
Dario's picture.
okay. All right.
Okay. So then the next line, so this one is a Bob request having to do with a camper. So maybe Bob, you want to speak to this one? You're on mute.
Still practicing this mute thing. I've had 2 complaints this year about people's RVs parked in the yard that are longer than 33 feet, which is the current allowed maximum length. I did a bunch of research, and if you own a Class C, chances are you're going to be at 33 feet. If you own a Class B or a Class A, you will be over 33 feet, because especially the higher end Class A's, they are on a bus chassis, which is close to 40 feet in length. So in an effort to, you know, kind of stem the tide in terms of people complaining, I'm proposing just take out the 33-foot length stipulation. I mean, because an RV still has to meet Department of Transportation requirements in terms of length and width, which is something I don't think is the zoning code can't change it.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, just take out the 33 feet in length. I mean, I had a travel trailer when I was doing that sort of thing. The trailer itself was 30 feet, and from bumper to ball, which is the overall length, was 35 feet. And that's a pretty common, you know, if you got kids and you're traveling any distances for any length of time, you're going to be in one of these larger units. So I'm just proposing taking out the maximum allowed length. That's all.
Seems fine. Any comments or questions?
So Bob, they were basically, the complaints were that they were exceeding the 33 feet and therefore were
It's a
not
zoning
being,
violation.
it's a what?
It's a zoning violation. You know, one of them, I actually went out and I went online and took the model and the
Yeah.
brand. And I went online, and that particular unit goes anywhere from 31 to 40 feet. You know, and this is a Class A motorhome. I mean, this thing is, you know, a couple $100,000.
So are you saying it can be longer than that now, as long as it's just set back from the, abutting property line by the requirements, right?
I'm not sure of that, but in terms of just overall allowed length,
Okay,
you know, I'm just saying, let's just stick to the Federal Department of Transportation requirements.
okay.
Okay, so then the next one, so this is from the MBTA bylaw. There were a couple of uses that currently don't exist in our zoning bylaw, the makerspace and the co-working space. So I actually stole these definitions from a couple other towns. After reviewing a few different options, I thought for the makerspace, this was probably more in line with what we were looking for. Some of the other definitions were more industrial. It sounded like more of an industrial use.
Mhm.
And I think what we would be interested in for our MBTA bylaw is more of a soft use. So it'd be more of a commercial, a business use. So this would be, you know, creation of jewelry, leather products, electronic goods, clothing, apparel, etc. Furniture, woodworking.
I think the words
Hmm.
fabrication and metalwork might open it up to like, I'm just concerned that it turns into like a welding.
A welding shop.
Yeah. Which wouldn't be that's more industrial. Like I can see metalwork, like, that's artistry that you're gonna sell. But I guess there's a big difference between fabricating metal, whether it's for artists or whether it's for, some other use.
Yeah, I mean, this is all about like individuals who just, they don't have any employees. They're just individuals who are doing this as a business,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to share their tools. They don't want to invest in the tools by themselves. So these are like tiny operations. So if it's a big manufacturer, then they're clearly in industrial use and they'd be in the industrial district.
So would you want to say products by an individual?
Well, so the whole point is that individuals congregate together, so they're sharing their tools. So you might have, 5 people coming together
Mm-hmm.
to share the space. So it's not, just one person working by themselves.
To make the same product? I mean, I think I understand what you're looking for, and I think it would be a great addition to our use. I might be a little concerned that it's confusing and misused.
Well, the other thing I'd wonder too, like, so is it, if it's one person or 5 people, and what happens if it's a bigger property and now it's, I mean, I don't know, 25 people, is that, I mean, is there some limitation where it is one thing or another?
I can send you, I found some documents online about maker spaces and co-working spaces. I can send those out to you.
Yeah.
And you can read more about it and see if it's something that you want to allow or whether you don't.
I mean, I
So for
really
me,
like the idea that, so if there's a way to get something in that wouldn't be either misused or inappropriately interpreted. Yeah.
Yeah, or just exploited in general, but yes.
Yeah.
Some rules and definition around what that actually means in terms of the amount of bodies.
And if it's underneath, like a mixed use and there's apartment above it, I don't know, like, I would be concerned about like saws and stuff, like making a lot of noise, but maybe there
Maybe
could
this
be.
was your suggestion.
I know, I took it from the state, but I didn't picture it as metal
God.
shop.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay. All
It was
right.
the state had it as a makerspace, but I didn't know it was a metal shop. I was picturing people doing like stained glass.
I
Which
like it.
actually, they are working with soldering irons, so.
I
Yeah,
know, but
You're
they're not
working with
like a,
metal.
but they're not noisy. I don't want to like bother any type of use that's gonna like bother the people living upstairs, like a saw.
Okay, then maybe
Yeah,
we should take this
Anthony?
out of our MBTA district.
We
So
could
when-
take it
whenever
out
we're
if
done
you,
with- Whenever we're done with this one, I had a question to go backwards one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
so I guess we could review it and come back to it. Like maybe it should be like an artistry type of shop that's, I don't know.
Oh, we
No,
already allow, art,
Studios. Yeah.
artist studios, so.
I like this. I like it.
Yeah.
Which one? The co-working space?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Hmm.
Maybe it shouldn't be like loud power tools,
Wait, are we talking about co-working space or still the maker space?
I was
They're
still in
both.
the makerspace.
Oh, Millie, you've moved on to co-working space?
I'm moving on.
Okay. Anthony,
like-
oh, go
Can
ahead,
I-
Anthony.
Can I back up to RVs for 1 second? Just to talk-
To which one?
He's
RV.
going way
RV.
back.
He's going back to the
Whatever it was.
RV.
RV?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
My question is, and I'm sorry if I didn't hear it, but there is a setback from abutting property lines, is that? And how does that work? Like, what's it equivalent to?
Yes, there are setbacks. So what is it? 15 feet side, 25-foot rear?
Okay, so just like, it'd be like a building, sort of, right, yeah. Or,
But
yeah,
is that, but if they're parking in their driveway, they're not that far away.
It wouldn't have to be, right? Sure,
But they have to be.
If they're parked in the driveway can be a foot.
right,
If I remember correctly,
Right.
we tried to change that last year and it got voted down.
Right, but they can't
means-
park that within that
Yeah.
1 foot.
They can't park in their driveway.
That's
Unless
the
their
idea.
driveway is super wide.
I just wonder if the language should be defined a little bit better in terms of you still can't use your driveway if it's sitting on the butter's property line based on the size of the RV.
Well, it has to meet the setbacks. It still has, it
The
does. have-
current language, which is proposed to be left unchanged, is, and I'll read it to you, bear with me.
Bob, I have it
Provided-
right on the screen.
Provided it is setback from abutting property lines by the minimum yard setback requirements of the applicable zoning district. So the only thing that's changing is the dimensions of the unit.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and it would have to be, currently minimum yard setback requirements.
And Anthony, you could have your driveway 15 feet from your yard setback. So we have no idea where the driveway is located within the property. So it could be in the driveway or it could not, depending
Okay, so-
upon where your driveway is located.
So first of all, I apologize for dwelling on this, but so if my driveway, so right now your driveway can sit pretty much close or almost on the property line of your abutting neighbor. Are you saying that if there was room, I could park that RV on that driveway that was sitting on top of my neighbor's abutting property?
No,
Nope.
Technically, no.
Fair enough. Sorry. move
Technically,
on.
no.
All right. So co-working space. Are you folks happy with that definition?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, and then I only had one other zoning change that I wanted to talk to you folks about. And then we can move on from there. Are we all set with this document? Can I get rid of it?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm just gonna open up that one last thing. Oh, shoot. here we go. Is that sharing?
Nope.
No,
Okay, here we go. All right, so we talked about the highway district in the Southwest connector. And at the last meeting, we were talking about the concern about having adult entertainment uses up at Northborough Crossing. So I was thinking of an alternative to creating a whole new highway business district. And that was to just leave Avalon, Northborough Crossing, and the other uses within the industrial district and the major commercial overlay district, and then just include the gravel pit and the ball fields property within the highway business district. So the uses, so I did look at the Business South district, and the concern I have about including this land within Business South is that it allows warehouses and manufacturing facilities. So that defeats the purpose of rezoning this area.
mhm.
So I didn't think that you folks would be happy with that. So I thought that this would be a good compromise. It wouldn't be spot zoning because, of course, this is the highway business district. So you're just expanding the limits of the highway business district. And then we have the entire gravel pit property, which is a very large area of land. I think it's over 50 acres anyway. So what are your thoughts?
Kimmy, you have your hand up there?
Yeah, oh. Trying to figure out how to lower my hand. I never raise it.
An action?
It wouldn't let me raise it last time, but now I can. My concern still is the adult uses being allowed there because we're expanding off of Route 9. And adult uses include bookstores and strip clubs, and I wouldn't want to expand those any other area because people can laugh that maybe the baseball fields wouldn't be a strip club, but I would hate it if that happened. So, you know, that's the only reason why I wouldn't want to expand the highway district down into that area.
Can we prohibit adult uses or we can't?
You have to allow them somewhere, but it's by special permit. So, I mean, it's not a by right use.
But how can we have to allow them? Can we prohibit? We have a whole bunch of prohibited uses.
Bob, do you want to speak to that?
I think chapter 48 says that you cannot eliminate them. I'm trying to find the book, but I think you have to have a zone for them with restrictions and the whole business. Let me see what it has here.
I was wondering if we could ask town council if we can have a footnote that says that the adult uses can only be allowed actually on Route 9. Like, even though highway business is branching off of Route 9, can there be a footnote? Because we have a lot of footnotes at the bottom of the use table. And I wanted to know if that would stand up, that if we changed it, if we can have a footnote that, you know, adult uses only on Route 9. But I do remember too that I think Mass General Law, Section 3 is the exemptions, and I want to think hazardous waste and adult uses for some reason have to be allowed somewhere.
Right.
along with like, you can't prohibit daycares and other things. But I did look for it today and I
Wow.
couldn't find it.
Are there any
does-
other comments on this proposal?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you just kind of back up a minute? So, and the reason, and maybe I'm just completely missed what you said, but my understanding for years, our intent was to get rid of the industrial zoning because of preventing further distribution centers in this area. So what are you proposing and what am I missing?
Okay, so the highway business district, so if you look at, the shops at Northborough Crossing,
Mhm.
they have to adhere to the requirements of the highway business district. And I did a little bit of an analysis of all of the existing uses within this industrial district. And the existing uses best fit with the highway business district. So that would mean that there would be the fewest number of non-conforming uses if we went with highway business versus some of the other business districts. So the great thing about the highway business district is it does not allow warehouses, distribution facilities, or manufacturing. So those are the uses that you're trying to get away from anyway. So the concern, so originally my proposal was to rezone the entire industrial district for highway business and then delete the major commercial overlay district because you don't need it anymore because it only covered the industrial district anyway. And it was very similar to the highway business district. So that was my original proposal. And then at the last meeting, there was concern about adult uses up at Northborough Crossing. So I was trying to think of a compromise position that would ensure that there would be no adult uses up at Northborough Crossing. And, but still, we would get the benefit of the highway business district. So that's my rationale.
So it's still, what you're proposing still prevents, let's say, a warehouse or distribution center from this area.
Mhm.
Yep, but allows a strip club. I don't know which is worse. But you know, Bob,
As
it's
far as
actually,
jobs are concerned, I think you'd rather have a distribution facility and a warehouse than you would a strip club. Although I understand they make good money.
right? I find them on section 9A, Bob. Mass General Laws 40A, section 9A.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah.
But it also references another Mass General Law. There's a bunch of conditions where the zoning ordinances, bylaws can make it, restrictive and, distances from other adult bookstores, distance from schools and churches, distance from, whatever. I mean, there's a whole bunch of conditions right at the beginning. But it also, let's see. Was it any person convicted of violating provisions of section 63, chapter 119, or section 28 of chapter 272? There's also another one in here. And I'm also going to look in the handbook.
Yeah.
And see what Mark says, because he puts a lot of background information into this thing. It's going to be a deeper dive than I can give you an answer for right now.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that. But it seems like if I read just 9A, it doesn't say we can't prohibit them. It just talks about special permitting.
Right.
I think there's a lot of it is with the case law.
That's why I'm looking up in the handbook.
Well, maybe we could just put put a pin in this one and talk about it.
Yeah, and if
again at the
Bob
next
does his
meeting.
research there, and maybe we ask our town council, based on Bob's research, what would he advise, like, could we prohibit it? Because it would be an easier solution, but but for that one component, but if we could prohibit adult uses, we'd solve all our problems.
Yep.
All righty, so I'm gonna stop share.
Okay, that's great, thank you for your work on that, Bob, thanks for researching that.
Sure.
Okay, so we've covered bylaws. Should we move on to discussion of statement to sell land under chapter 61A, right of first refusal, 432 Whitney Street?
Sure. So I provided you folks with a letter with my recommendation. So we did receive a packet of information from Santo Anza, who owns 432 Whitney Street. So it's a 23.77 acre parcel. I actually have a map that I can open. If you bear with me one more minute, and this will be my last share, I promise. Okay. All right, so this is the parcel that we're talking about. It's clearly located on Whitney Street. It is abutting some industrially occupied land here. And it is between the railroad right-of-way. On the other side of the railroad right-of-way is the aqueduct. And then on Whitney Street, these are single-family homes. So I had some concerns about the development of this property for industrial use. So it's my understanding from the paperwork that Santo Anza wants to sell the property to a realty trust who is interested in utilizing the railroad in order to do a distribution use. So they mentioned in their package that they're interested in constructing a 40,000 to 60,000 square foot building for commercial industrial warehouse distribution purposes. And it says that they are potentially interested in being served by a new connection to the freight rail line adjacent to the land. So I understand that Bob has had discussions with is it the buyer that you've talked to, Bob? No?
I've had discussions with the current owner of the property.
And there are some concerns about what that property will be used for.
Well, nothing has been cast in stone. I've been told that the actual owner of the real estate trust who is interested in buying it, owns railroads. And what I've been told, and again, this is hearsay, so I'm trying to be careful. Reactivate the spur of the railroad and use it for some sort of transloading facility. And I heard something about contaminated soils. This particular railroad company has done work in Milford, Upton, and Grafton. All of the towns have fought in federal court about the uses, because federal railroads are federally protected against just about everything except conservation, including zoning, any kind of special permits, any kind of variances. take the red book that we have and throw it out the window, basically. And if you fight it in federal court, chances are the towns will lose, as Grafton did. And you've got a corporate tenant in town who will not be friendly to you. So it's quite a conundrum.
But we're lucky to have this opportunity, right? The other towns,
Yes,
they didn't
so-
have the right of first refusal.
right. So this land is currently enrolled in the Chapter 61 program. So that gives the town the right of first refusal to possibly purchase the property itself or assign the right to purchase to a land trust. So Sudbury Valley trustees, maybe an appropriate land trust to convey the right to. So the town only has 120 days to act on its right of first refusal. So some interesting aspects of the property is that it directly abuts land that is owned by the state. So it's owned by the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So that's this green parcel right here.
Mhm.
And it is used for the Barefoot Brook flood control. And it also abuts, there's some other land here that is also owned by the state. It's associated with the Route 290 interchange. And then if you look over the line in the town of Berlin, you will see a large swath of permanently protected open space. I'm a little bit confused because it showed different information. It looks to me like a portion of this land is owned by the Conservation Commission in Berlin. And then another portion is privately owned, but it has a permanent conservation restriction on it. So the benefit of purchasing Whitney Street, this property as open space and recreation, is that it will provide a link between the aqueduct. So of course you can't go over the railroad tracks, but you could just go down the street and you could provide a great open space connection to this large swath of permanently protected open space. There is a wetland system right where my cursor is circling.
Mhm.
And that wetland system is hydrologically connected to Barefoot Brook. So there would be a benefit ecologically of protecting this wetland. And there is already a gravel driveway. And there's a high point, I believe, in this vicinity here that yields some significant scenic views when you're looking towards the Boston area on a clear day. So it's a real attractive view. And it does have the potential of being able to accommodate parking for the aqueduct. You could do a trail network. A significant portion has been cleared. So you could do a trail network that could connect to the DCR land. So I do believe that it has value as permanently protected open space. Of course, it's not cheap. The figure that was included in the packet from Santa Anza was $1.7 million. So that's a significant chunk of change. Pools of money that the town could access is, of course, the CPA money
So
for
question,
open
a
space.
clarification, Laurie.
Yeah.
Can we only pay what it's assessed at? Is that what it's assessed at as well?
So it's my understanding that within 30 days, the town can get an appraisal.
Mhm. Oh, praised, okay, yeah.
And then they can base it on the appraisal. So if the appraisal comes in, you know, at 1.5 million, then that would be the price that the town would
Okay.
offer.
Okay.
I have heard in other situations that it's good to match whatever the offer is. Don't know if Santa Anzo could choose to turn down a price that is less than 1.7 million. So that's something that I'd have to check with town council about.
Okay.
One of my concerns, of course, is that there's White Cliffs. So if the town were to exhaust its reserves of CPA money to acquire this property, then what does that mean for White Cliffs? So I'm a little bit concerned about that. There are some grant monies that could be accessed, but of course that takes time. And it's the grant application, the land grant in particular is the grant that I'm interested in. Did you get that, Amy, to pay for the common? Was it a land grant?
It was a land grant.
Okay. So that would be a really good source of funding. But like I said, the grant application only opens once a year, and then you have to wait several months in order to receive a response. So that is concerning because of the 120-day period of time. But maybe the town could get an extension if they commit to matching the price.
Thoughts from the board?
And the offer from the railroad company is, that's legitimate?
There's a purchase and sale
Hmm,
agreement, so I assume so.
okay.
Anthony, did you have something there?
Well, so I think a couple things. I mean, the reality is we could have, you know, somebody could be trying to pull the wool over our eyes, but I also feel as though, based on what I know so far, is we may not, or maybe we should not take the risk on this. But the question I have for you, Lori, is, so this is before the planning board, and obviously you've got the CPA would be involved. Select board would be involved. I imagine this goes to town meeting. What are all the other things that have to happen for that to actually go to, let's say, an open space scenario?
Yeah, so the first step is, of course, this goes to the Board of Selectmen or Select Board. So they are the ones who will ultimately decide whether the town is going to exercise the right or whether they're not. So right now they're on a fishing expedition. They're looking for feedback from various boards and committees, including the Open Space Committee, the Conservation Commission, and of course the Planning Board. So, and I imagine the CPC, if they decide that they want to go forward and exercise the right of first refusal, then we'll have to figure out how we're going to fund it.
Mhm.
So, imagine the town would have to sign a purchase and sale. It would have to go to town meeting. And then, you know, execute the transfer. Maybe it could be a similar thing with White Cliffs. So the town acquired that for a little bit less than $2 million. I think it was like 1.7 million. But the town didn't exhaust the reserves and just give a check for 1.7 million. They ended up financing a large chunk of that. So over a 10-year period of time. So that's another possibility. They could decide to use the CPC funds, but then finance. But that would be a decision not made by you. So at this point, they're just looking for a recommendation.
And what
Yes,
happens
and-
to all the stuff that's on the site now? Is he responsible to get rid of it, but or are we just buying it as is, junk included?
So, Bob, didn't you say that you saw an environmental report? Or
Um,
maybe it was,
did
it could
not-
have been Danny.
I did not see an environmental report on 432. I did walk the property about 3 weeks ago. There are some older vehicles, maybe an old trailer or something like that, but it's basically just brush and forest.
Oh, okay, so it's not the big mound of garbage.
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
that's across the street.
That's
That's
across the
across the
street of
street.
429. Okay, this is, if you go over the aqueduct or the
Oh,
viaduct,
okay, I'm
whatever it
with
is,
you, I'm with
it's on the right-hand side, not the left-hand side.
you. Okay,
There's a couple of vehicles down there, but and it's fairly close to the road. There's a fairly substantial amount of wetlands in there. I do know that there was a conservation order to, he was bringing in some sort of unsuitable material, basically to build some sort of a roadway. He brought in basically organic material, you know, and leveling it out so he can get some sort of a pathway further down into his property. I believe the conservation departments put a stop to that.
okay, so that still remains, that we are not getting rid of.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So if the town were interested in acquiring it, you know, in a purchase and sale agreement, you can put conditions. But again, that would be something that would be decided by the select board.
Okay, Amy or Bill or Millie, any thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, I live down the street from this property, right? I've been living with this ever since I moved here, and dealing with the issues, and we'll leave it at that. I'm very concerned with what Mr. Federico said about having somebody even worse in there.
Mhm.
I know that Open Spaces has been saving some funds and has some funds that could possibly be used towards this. That, you know, I know that this property was actually on their list of properties to reach out to, but they didn't want to because there is a general consensus in town, or at least there was the last time this came up. And Lori, I don't know if you want to look, but there was an incident of him stating that the property was going to be sold and had a purchase and sale. The town ended up not purchasing it, and then that purchase actually fell through and didn't happen. So I would be concerned that same thing were happening here. But I'll also say that there was a general consensus when that happened that the town didn't want to pay him to get rid of him. Basically, they didn't want to pay him an exorbitant amount of money to, you know, and make it seem like he won, I guess is the way to say it. But like I said, you know, given what Bob just said, I don't, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire. I don't know
Have
that
we
we
seen
really
the
have a
railroad
choice.
company with our own eyes? Like we've seen, Laura, you mentioned there's a PNS, like we have seen like proof that this is a true story.
Yeah, I thought I forwarded the packet to you folks a while ago. So I mean, I have it right in front of me and it looks to me to be a valid purchase and sale agreement.
Okay,
It's on
So
the
it's
website, too.
notarized.
okay.
Has council taken a look at it?
I believe so. So this was received by the Board of Selectmen and then forwarded to us for a recommendation.
Okay.
So I guess, I mean, obviously it's up to the select board and, you know, the CPC. I would definitely talk to John and Vinny about the funds that are in the open space fund right now that have been saved up for a purchase like this. I don't think they have the whole purchase, but they probably have about half of it saved in that fund.
Okay, Millie or Anthony or Amy, your thoughts on this one?
And this still goes to town meeting, correct? Regardless?
It would go to town meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Even
How
if
do we
that's
make
outside the
120
120
days?
days. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say.
Special town meeting?
Yep,
Special town meeting?
but they could do a special town meeting.
Okay.
I wouldn't call us bluff. I think if 3 other towns have done it and lost, I mean, I think it would cost more than $1.7 million to clean up a pile of contaminated soil that could end up on that property. And it sounds like it's surrounded by some wetlands and it could be used for something down the road, something nice with trails. It could be a bike path on the aqueduct someday. It could be a park. Like, I would exercise the right of first refusal. I would not risk trying to call this bluff.
Millie or Anthony, what do you think?
I tend to agree. I think that I know the sentiment in town is people do not want to reward this behavior, but I think the risks for this could be just too high, and the mitigation after the fact. I mean, you look at 429 and what a disaster that is. I'd hate to see this happen across the road. So, I mean, I would be in support of it, but just starting the process, obviously it's not our call, but I would support it.
Millie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about it, but I have some concerns about trying to go through the process and find that we're on the losing end of the sale. Bob, you were saying the only thing that might be in favor is if we were to put a conservation, or if we had conservation concerns.
No,
Oh.
my point was that when a railroad, because of its federal protections, starts to do an activity, okay?
Yeah.
About the only thing they have to adhere to is conservation or wetland issues.
Okay.
And even then, I'm not so sure how deep that requirement can go.
Okay.
I mean, Grafton had a propane transloading facility installed, and it was near conservation. It was near one of the wells for the drinking water supply. It was within 1,000 feet of a school, and there are 480,000 gallons of liquid propane
It is.
stored in 4 tanks.
Oh, God.
And they got that approved, huh? Or it went through because of that?
Well, it's the railroad owned the land, and they also own the spur and the transloading operation. And the town of Grafton fought it in federal court and lost.
Yeah, so the other thing I'd add to that is, you know, I know there's been litigation ongoing for, I don't know if it's been about 10 years or so. I have no idea what the town has spent in effort and dollars in that time just on 429,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it could be good money spent just to avoid some of that.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I think, I mean, I'm willing to fight almost anything, but I don't think this is not one of them. And Laura, you did make some good, you've had some lemons out of lemonade in your recommendations. I thought sounded redeeming and hopeful, not just a bad, you know, there were some good things on there that we could make out of this for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great letter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you need an official vote? Any other discussion on this one? I think it was interesting because the last time this came up, the board unanimously voted to not buy it. But it sounds like based on the risk here, it's just too big of a risk.
Was
Yeah,
that
'cause
the other property? Was
Yeah,
that
you remember that, Bob?
429?
But it wasn't a railroad.
I
No,
thought
No,
it
I
was,
think it was this
both.
one.
It was both.
Oh,
And
was
it
it?
was, yeah, it was a warehouse. They were going to put a warehouse up,
Yeah.
and that one we were fine with. Or that one that one we didn't want. But I think this one, it's like I said, it's out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, this is worse than a warehouse.
I'll make a motion that we exercise our right of first refusal for the town to buy, is it 432 Whitney Street?
Yes,
Yeah.
432.
32, yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Millie,
aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Carries an eye. All right,
Wonderful.
that's what the planning board thinks of that.
Carrie,
Yes,
if I might, while you folks were talking about this, I looked up in the handbook of land use and planning about adult entertainment.
Mhm.
Get ready for this. It's protected by the First Amendment. As an artistic expression. However, there is quite a lot of stuff going on where the author states that Massachusetts does allow for special permits. To Amy's point, it doesn't say we can't prohibit it, but the courts have denied all of those other towns who have tried to prohibit
Hmm.
that use, okay? However, the courts and the chapter 48 do have significant regulations that the towns can apply.
Mhm.
Okay, so an outright ban, I think, just from reading what I'm seeing here, although it doesn't say it doesn't prohibit you from banning it in the 40A. The courts have decided that it being a First Amendment protected right, reasonable controls are allowed. That's what I'm taking out of this. And there's a bunch of court cases that are right here in Massachusetts, so it's not like we have to go to Arizona for a
Mhm.
similar court case or a similar example.
So I
There's-
wonder if it'd even get through the Attorney General's office as a bylaw.
It may not, I don't know, I mean, it's, these days, who knows, but there's significant court cases, Mendon, where was the other one? One's in Virginia. What was it, Marshfield? Where is this one? I don't see a town on this one, but this one it was the Commonwealth, so it's the state. So,
Okay, so based on Bob's
Fall
research.
River,
Fall River, okay.
Hmm.
Is it possible to maybe find out from town council, based on what Bob found, is there a way to do what you're trying to do, Laurie, without like opening us up to risk, like whether it's a footnote or something like what Amy suggested with just, maybe something that doesn't cause us to have to rewrite that, but mitigates the adult use.
I can check.
If not, if you want, I can try to write a new area and put it together, but it would be like mid-January. Like a new district.
Spot zone?
Huh?
Do you mean like a spot zone for it?
No, it would be a whole new district. It would be the highway business southwest in that whole area, but I wouldn't include Avalon because
Oh,
like
okay.
Mary said, so it'd be
Oh,
the
for that
rest of the
area, okay.
areas except for Avalon, but it'd be just a new district, but we have to go through like the whole bylaw to make sure we don't miss anything.
Mm,
As far as parking and groundwater, and I did go through the site design and parking, and it looks like it will match up with highway business because they don't talk about the district as much as they talk about the use. So if it's a
Mhm.
commercial use, you'd need this much parking, and
mhm.
so I guess
So maybe is
Lori-
plan A, we kind of find out if we can work with what we have. And
yeah.
then maybe come back and see if we need plan B. We meet on January 2nd anyway, and it sounds like you can't do that before then.
No.
You don't want to spend
Right.
Okay, that's
Uh,
great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have minutes to review. It looks like there are amendments suggested for the 14th, nothing for the 5th. Does anyone have any other suggested amendments for the 14th? And then Amy, you made you had suggested, just keeping track of the questions that we already asked. Is that what you're?
Yeah, just going forward, the person who does the minutes, I like it when like for that preliminary review, we had asked like 5 or 6 questions. And sometimes what I love about the minutes is when I read them before the next meeting, I can say, oh, I already asked A, B, and C.
Mhm.
But this just said that planning board asked questions. So I don't even know. I don't remember what I asked and didn't ask. So I don't know if it matters for this set of minutes, but just going forward, if we have like a preliminary application or any application, if we ask certain questions, if she could include them. Just helps for me because then I don't ask the same question 3 times.
Mhm.
So maybe, just one thing that I do like is when, rather than cover every single comment, like she just said, the board had a discussion and just like gives a description. So maybe the questions are important to know, to your point about remembering what we already asked, but she doesn't need to like go into like back and forth. Then I don't want to, we don't have to go back into like that back and forth. But just to represent the questions, it sounds like.
Yeah, because I felt like that wasn't like a super long discussion. It wasn't a long meeting, but like I think, Bill mentioned the traffic and then someone talked about the trails but none of that was put into the minutes.
Yeah, I think what she tried to do is just summarize. So it says that they asked several questions regarding the proposed development of these parcels, as well as the trails, parking and kayak access, and their maintenance, as well as uses for the current brick building, which is currently zoned downtown neighborhood. So
that's
she
pretty
just
succinct.
kind of glossed over it without
Mhm.
including the specific questions.
Yeah,
That seems okay.
yeah.
I guess, but I had to go search through my papers again to see what I asked. I see now I asked I had like 6 questions. So like if they came in front of me again and I didn't write them down, then I'd have to figure out, did I ask these questions, and I'd ask them all over again. I guess that's the hard part. I don't know.
Okay, well, for the purpose of these minutes, we're not suggesting revisions. Those, you just made a couple of minor suggested edits.
Yeah. Because I
Okay.
felt it was an overview, but we didn't really get the question and the answer. Like we talked about the trail, but what did we say about the trail? And we talked about traffic, but what did we actually ask?
Hmm.
So somebody reading it would know we talked about the trail, the traffic and this, but not actually what we asked and what he answered. So I feel like it doesn't really give enough information for someone trying to see what the intent of the planning board questions were
Mhm.
and what the applicant answered.
Okay, so maybe just a little more context, but I wouldn't want to go back to like pages of pages. It's almost
No.
like a transcript.
Right. Right.
Okay.
I just have one more quick question for Lori. Do you know when the feasibility study will be done for the MBTA?
No, they just got their contract from MHP. I just had to sign it last week. So they hadn't started. They were waiting for the contract before they were gonna start the work.
Okay, because that might
So-
change our bylaw a bit too. Because if we can ask for 15% affordable housing, then I'll want to ask for 15% affordable housing.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's get through the minutes. Are there any other amendments to November 14th minutes?
Mm-mm.
Okay, motion to accept November 14th as amended.
So
So,
Second,
second,
all in favor, Bill,
aye.
Amy,
hi,
Lily,
Aye.
Anthony,
I,
and carries an aye. Okay, any amendments to the December 5th minutes?
no,
Motion to accept as submitted.
So
So
moved.
mo-
Second,
second,
all in favor, Bill,
Aye.
Amy,
hi.
Lily,
Aye.
Anthony,
I,
and carries an aye. Next planning board meeting is January 2nd and then the 16th, so we will not see each other again before Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate. Looks like ZBA is on the 23rd. Anything exciting on the 23rd, Lori, for the ZBA?
No, the only thing that we have on the agenda thus far is an appeal of the building inspector's decision. I'm running a blank on what it's about even. You
Oh,
know,
You know what you're.
Bob knows.
I can refresh your memory.
Thank you.
The old Tredevi site on West Main Street.
Oh, yeah. that's
I
right.
had an attorney requesting that I acknowledge the existence of a contractor's yard and the continuing use of such contractor's yard over the past few years. And I said that I have no evidence to support that it has been a contractor's yard and that the use has been abandoned, which means any use for the property has to conform to today's current codes. And that was the determination that I had made, and the attorney is going to be appealing it to the ZBA.
So far, they haven't submitted any evidence.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's been a couple of years. I mean, even
Yeah.
Chidapi's been gone for a while.
I was gonna say, does anybody know how long they've been out of there, the facility?
They've been out of there certainly 2 years, plus they surrendered their storage license or something like that, which was part of my decision to not acknowledge the 2-year continuance for the quote grandfathered use. They pulled all that ability out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And nobody's been there. It's just,
And they weren't really a contractor yard anyways.
well, I think they had, I may be wrong, but there may be some language in there that it was by either example or by a special permit or something in the past, but that's what they asked me to acknowledge, and I could not do that for them.
Mhm.
All right, well, if there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Happy holidays.
I make a
Motion to adjourn.
A second,
Second.
Second,
Bill,
aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Have a
Good
good
night,
night.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Good night.
Bye.
Night all.